Ulonkata bati yada tó yẹ kó máa da ifá. Inú tó yẹ kó jẹun ló fi bí pa. Ọba tálá, ọba takuntakun. Shango Ase, Ògún Ọya Ọ̀ṣun. Ìwọ ló ń bọ̀ nílé. Kí ni ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ tán ṣe nílé yìí o? Ó jẹ́ lọ jára rẹ̀.
Alafia, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Welcome to another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I am your host, Orisha Bemi, also known as Jagun Shango, and we are back with another live stream, family. I appreciate all the love and support. It's been a long time coming, man, since I had this mastermind on the show, so I definitely look forward to tonight's conversation, man. It's going to be another legendary, epic conversation, as they always are. So with that, I want to give a quick shout out to the tribe, shout out to all the new subscribers, shout out to everybody who's been rocking with us from day one, from day maybe 181 to 391, or whatever day you came on. I give thanks and gratitude and appreciation to all of y'all. I also wanted to give a shout out to everybody who helped Ashe get to where it is today. Every single guest, every single supporter, every single person who has shared the channel, who has subscribed to the channel, who has supported the channel. I give gratitude and thanks to all y'all, man. I definitely really do. And so with that, without further ado, my brother in Shango Ase is here today. Baba Khepra Ptah. Peace and blessings. What's good with you, Baba? How you doing, man?
Peace and blessings, good brother. I'm doing quite well, you know. I've been making a few alchemical transformations in my personal life, working with family and everything else. So, you know, the world keeps on spinning and things keep on coming into new beginnings. Yes, we had a lot of people leave this realm last year. So when something leaves, something else comes in. So we just got to open up our minds, open up our first eyes, and give ourselves permission to receive.
Yes, sir. Yeah. No, that's real, man. That's facts. And you know, I remember the very first time we did this, I was just like, yo, it was dope because like I knew it was going to be epic based off our previous conversations. Like, and we only had one, I think, two. The one when Muna introduced us, and then the second one when you and I chopped it up briefly before that first show. But I knew that conversation was going to be epic just because of the frequency that I felt like we both met on. And so with that, like that was to this day one of my favorite shows ever because it was just like, it was everything I expected and then some, you know what I mean? It was like, it was amazing to me. So it's like, you one of them brothers who I've been blessed to interview and sit on the other side of the table from some very, very, very prolific masterminds. And I mean that. And I'm proud of that actually, because I've been able to interview some of the best minds I feel like that's ever crossed this planet, like straight up. And so with that being said, you know, I give gratitude to that. I give gratitude to all those different elders, all the different scholars, all the different master teachers, all the different people that I've been blessed to cross paths with and to interview and sit, you know, on the other side of the mic from. I give gratitude for that, man, because it means a lot to me because I'm learning just like everybody else in the audience is learning. But you definitely have a gift and a mind that's different from any other that I've ever experienced. And I feel like because you're tapped in and able to tap into a lot of different dimensions, a lot of different frequencies, and a lot of different I feel like algorithms simultaneously. And I saw that in the very first show. So with that, when we first talked about and chopped it up about what we were going to speak about tonight, and mind you, it's been a long time coming because you've had a lot of things going on your end. I've had a lot of things going on my end. It's been a lot, you know. I had a break for like a month, and you know, and then you had a lot, you know, you were doing. So I say all that to say it's been a long time coming. There's a lot of things I felt like that tried to kind of block this conversation from happening, but I feel like everything happens in divine time. So I see that you came tonight in your Matrix garb, you know, looking like Morpheus out in this thing, man. And I feel like you're coming to drop that Morpheus Ashe energy on us. So
for sure,
for us to get into this thing, and I can't wait to get into it, I want to talk about, or I want to ask you about the Matrix before the Matrix. If we're going to talk metaphysics, what is the Matrix before the Matrix, Baba Ptah? What is that?
All right. So first of all, when you look at a matrix, when it comes to mathematics, right, they show you a box with rows of numbers. Well, a matrix is an enclosure. A matrix is also a womb. Hence, ma'at, mathematics, all contains that word mat, right? So when you get into like Orisha and Ifa, the priest is the master of the mat, right? In Lukumi, they call the master of the mat the Oriate, the master of the mat. But the Babalao also sits on the mat. And the mat is made of rows and columns, hence representing the ability to master the matrix. Now, what do I mean by that? So we say long before the matrix, we go talk about it because it became a very popular term, especially in the 90s. So long before the Matrix became a global phenomenon or a cultural phenomenon, say in 1999 second. The concept of a simulated machine-dominated reality governed by layered intelligence had already been circulating in science, so it's not something new. So science fiction, esoteric philosophy, and speculative metaphysics, and one of the most controversial modern contributors to this conversation is the one and only Sophia Steward. So you know about the story of how this was a sister who created the platform, or should I say the foundation, where it became the Terminator and Matrix movies. Okay, so she claims authorship of an earlier screenplay or manuscript titled The Third Eye Matrix, in which she sent a copy to the Wachowski brothers, and they ended up doing something with it. Next thing you know, we put 2 franchises in which they were able to develop off of her intellectual property. So Stewart has asserted that her work was written in the 1980s and contained foundational elements and later seen in the Matrix and Terminator franchises, like, for instance, a machine world, humanity as an enslaved energy source, an oracle-like intelligence, a chosen individual awakening to truth, and a system engineered by artificial intelligence. Okay? So her claim led to prolonged legal disputes. Hollywood studios and the Wachowskis, whom had taken her work and refused to pay her or give her the credit for coming up with the idea. While courts did not formally establish her authorship of the Matrix films, her narrative has persisted as part of the Matrix lore all the way into this day. And I'm on the sister side when it comes to this. So you got Black content creators, Afrofuturists, which have discourse, and we see Sophia Steward as the mother of the idea of the Matrix as far as the movies are concerned. Now, regardless of all the legal outcomes, her work reflects somewhat much deeper of not only story, but what has been said to be a documentary. It's an archetypal narrative echoing ancient cosmology, Gnosticism, Hermeticism, and modern anxieties about technology taking over the planet and everything else, AI going rogue, and all this other fun stuff. So, it's the very nature of consciousness in which we're looking at, and how we actually live in the matrix ourselves. You see what I mean? And how we have to construct the matrix. So at its core, the matrix is a Gnostic mythology. What is Gnostic? Gnostic is dealing with the concept of gnosis, which basically means that you get direct experience with divine knowledge, knowing that the realm in which we live in is not what it is. So in much of Gnostic teachings, there's the belief that there's not an actual true expression of the creator as far as the world in which we live in. It's actually an invitation of an actual reality. But we live in a distorted reality because it's not created by the actual or highest level of divinity, but by a demiurge, and a being who arrogantly believed himself to be the one and true divinity. And then his mother shouted out, said, "Shut up, Yaldabaoth, or Yadobeo. You don't know what you're talking about. You think you're the only one God up here, but I'm your mama." That's the story according to the Gnostic text, okay? And by the way, and I mean, I'm not trying to hurt no feelings or disrespect nobody, but Yaldabaoth has been identified as being none other than Jehovah and the God of Abraham and so on. That's the Gnostic version of the story, okay? Don't beat up on me. Just look at the text. It's called the Nag Hammadi text, and it came out in it was discovered in the Nag Hammadi area in the desert in 1940s. Look it up.
Real quick, my bad. I don't want to interrupt, but what was the name that you said that, and then you went into Jehovah? What was the name you said that was the?
Some people say that it's Yaldabaoth.
Okay.
I say Yaldabaoth, right?
Okay.
So Yaldabaoth, is often spelled like Yaldabaoth, Yaldabaoth. So that's who they identified as being Jehovah. Okay. Now, when you get deeper into the mysticism of it, you discover that Yaldabaoth is none other than the 4 elements that holds this plane together. You see, and what happens is when your mind gets enwrapped in the matrix of the 4 elements, we're earth, wind, fire, and water. But because we're in these physical forms, we have fallen in love with the sensation of being in the physical form, and we have forgotten our origin.
Yeah.
So look up the Nag Hammadi text and maybe you can get you a copy online. Right? It's found in Nag Hammadi. This is the place in Kemet, by the way, or Egypt, if you want to say that. Okay. So it also takes you in the direction in which the Romans did not take Christianity, because then you start learning about the nature of Christ consciousness and so on, and that you're actually a being of light that's been trapped in matter. And this is where we begin to look more and more into the matrix. So we get into this concept of the whole matrix lore, the demiurge, hence the architect, Sophia, which incidentally is the author of the original material that became the third eye matrix, hence the matrix. And Sophia means divine wisdom, right? So it's say in the Gnostic traditions that Sophia is the one who got trapped in this physical form when she got away from the pleroma, which is the fullness of existence. And then you have Gnosis, which is awakening. And this is Neo's realization. You have the false world, the simulated reality, the elect, and those who are unplugged. And that in case you could see that those who were awakened to the nature of reality and of this construct, or would be considered realm. So in classical Gnosticism, the material world being the false construct maintained by lesser intelligences, while humanity continues a divine spark capable of awakening, which is within each and every one of us. Now, so keep in mind, the map is not the territory. The Matrix film externalized this myth through a code as the essence of reality and perception is programmable, and a belief as controlling variable. So now, those of you who are familiar with the Matrix movie series, you may have heard people say that it was more than a fiction. Like I said earlier, it was actually a documentary. It wasn't just entertainment. It was and still is, as you may say, initiatory symbolism, meant to initiate your mind into a different level of reality. And it was, we keep in mind that for those of us who understand what magic is, we're not so much talking about David Copperfield here, but we're talking about manipulation of the forces that shape reality itself. However, when it comes to the movies, it's illusion, okay, and dealing with mastering illusion and mastering the world, which is an illusion. But the other aspect of magic is to be able to control the forces of nature through ritual and so on. So when you study Western magic, for instance, you discover, that you're able to manipulate the forces of nature. It deals with sigils, it deals with chants, mantras, words of power, and other works to invoke the intelligence of the spirit. And then we will call upon the name of the spirit, and we may use certain colors to shift our consciousness, but being one with the intention of the intelligence of the spirit, in case we may invoke the spirit and let that spirit dwell within us. Then we'll learn about the colors. We'll learn about the names. So we can see that the universe itself is voice activated. Now I'm gonna tell you something. Years ago when I was doing Kabbalah, right? Kabbalah is very similar to Ifa in many ways. They even, when you get into like the mystical and the magical aspect, even those Jewish rabbis who practice Kabbalah, and much of it was developed in Spain, which we'll talk about some other time, they even wipe and clean themselves off with a chicken, the way we do in the Europe of faith tradition.
Wow.
Very similar.
Wow.
They even talk about how creation was formed by bowls being poured like water to create the Sephiroth and create an emanation of a world in which we're living and which we dwell in. So you have the Ein Sof, and then you have the personal God. So there was a time when I did a ritual, when I first saw how real it was, when I was working with Western magic. Remember, I dressed in all white and I chanted Jah, right? Which is the first Sephiroth, which is in Kether. Now, if you're familiar with the works around Nephraim, that's identified with Obatala sphere and Osiris sphere, right? So after I did that morning, I left and walked out and discovered that all these people around me were wearing white. There's a dude with a Chinese hat on wearing white, drove past me on a bicycle. And when I went further down the street, guess what I saw written on the sidewalk in chalk? I saw the name Jah. Can't make this shit up. Can't make it up. Okay. So there you go. When you work with magic, you are having the ability to manipulate and shift and change reality. So when you look at the word magic, you also see where the word imagination and magi and all that, they share the same word. because you're utilizing the power of the imagination. And this gets into one of the 7 Hermetic principles that I also like to go into, what we call mentalism, where they say the all is mind and the universe is mental.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you look into the indigenous traditions, for instance, the Yoruba, you know, what are many examples where we call upon cosmic forces according to this beautiful tradition, we realize by utilizing poetry and marking patterns called Odu, at least from the Babalawo, right? Way of doing things.
Yeah.
It's equivalent to typing in computer codes.
Yes.
See? So you're typing in these computer codes to access the energy or access the program that we would like to activate in our lives and in the reality of our immediate existence. The same can be said for those who study other forms of magic in certain spiritual traditions, including drawing the yantras in Eastern traditions, or drawing a veve according to Haitian Vodun, and those who are basically the same as mandalas and sigils used to invoke spiritual entities such as angels and so on, like the 72 seals, 72 angels of Solomon seals, or 72 demons, or whatever. All those are connected to the 72 aspects of the zodiac, 72 degrees, you know, in the zodiac, and so on. Okay. So when you're awakening the angel within you, you're actually connecting yourself to the heavenly realm by awakening the power of that deacon within you. But that's another story. We'll talk about that another time. So, you know, so how did I get into all this? Now in Seattle, right, which is where I live, in which I've been living about 51 years. Well, maybe not quite, because I did get in the military for a while and spent a couple of years out. But anyway, all my life in Seattle, I've been exposed to the mystical traditions. My father was one of the people that kind of started it off. You know, about 2 decades ago, there used to be this metaphysical library in Seattle. At first, it was called As You Like It Library. And I used to go there and visit this library constantly because they had all this metaphysical information. They had a huge selection of rare metaphysical books. And also, they would bring in guest speakers and so on. And they'd come and lecture at this library from time to time. And I recall running across the works of a man named Val Valerian, who had a series of books called The Matrix, which was also developed in the 1980s all the way up into the 1990s. And you can look up his work and probably find it online. These are rare books, so it's probably anywhere between $150 to $200, because there's about 6 or 7 volumes. Okay. So I saw this shelf full of these interesting looking books with pictures of gray aliens and other symbols that seemed to come out of a sci-fi movie. So I flipped through those pages, and it showed various alien species, as well as it talked about how these beings would function and how they had been secretly interacting with humanity and the governments of this planet for quite some time. So I'm looking through this, I'm like, wow, this is pretty dope shit. So I decided I was going to go ahead and study it. You know, now, this was reference material, if I remember. I wasn't allowed to take it out the library, but I took extensive notes. So in the 1980s to the 90s, Val Valerian, who was a pen name for, he published this Matrix series through what was called leading edge research. And his usage of the term matrix was not cinematic, but more information. So Valerian described the matrix as a multi-layered control system spanning psychological and electromagnetic and extraterrestrial dimensions, influencing human perception and belief systems. And going further, he also dealt with how the earth exists within a managed reality, and multiple non-human intelligences will interact with humanity, and consciousness is the true battleground, but not the territory. And he also intersects the concept of remote viewing, the Cold War psychic research, UFO and contactee narratives, and ancient gods reinterpreted as interdimensional intelligences.
Listen,
we can look at it in different ways. We can also say interdimensional intelligences have been interpreted as gods and so on.
Baba, let me ask you something, because you I feel like you threw me an alley-oop without even, it was no look. This was a no look alley-oop. You did like the Magic Johnson joint. We just kind of, I just wanted to catch it and boom it down, because right before we came on, you know, I sent you a text with something that I feel like fits the bill of what we're talking about. And I just got this, I think today or yesterday, from one of my clients, right? So do you mind if I share that real quick, since we're talking about extraterrestrial beings and we're talking about dimensions and portals and things of that nature? You mind if I share the picture real quick and share that with the tribe to kind of get your 2 cents of what you see to kind of fall into where we're at and where we're going with the rest of the conversation? You mind if I share that real quick?
By all means, Baba. Go ahead
Let me
and
get
light
it.
it up.
So tribe, I want to share something with y'all real quick, because there's been a whole lot of activity going on. I know y'all see it. I know a lot of y'all probably tapped into it. A lot of people are probably experiencing it on their own accord. But this was something that was sent to me by someone who I have worked or served, as a client. And I want to share this with y'all because it falls in divine alignment with everything that Baba Ptah was just talking about. Okay. Can y'all see that?
Baba, Baba Nkosi.
Yes,
Brother
sir.
Nkosi.
Yeah.
How's it going, Brother Nkosi?
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. Shout out to Baba Nkosi too, man. That's a real one, man. He's been riding with us for a minute now. Nothing but love, support, and always, sharing gratitude, but also sharing value with the tribe, man. So I definitely give a huge shout out to him and his family, for the love and support and the loyalty. Like, it's, that's rare. It's rare these days to have that kind of support and loyalty, but he definitely shares it with us. That being said, we were talking about grays, we were talking about extraterrestrials, we were talking about portals, we were talking about interdimensional travel, all that good stuff. I shared this with you right before we came on air because I wanted to get your perspective on what you saw when you see this. So, tribe, if y'all want to drop in the comments what y'all see, I definitely would appreciate it. But I definitely saw, I feel like what you said you saw, but you the guest and tribe came here to listen to you present tonight. So do you want to share with them what you see with that before I get my little 2 cents of what I see with it?
Sure. Now, we talk about frequency ranges in your 5 senses. Okay. We have things happening around us all the time. We always have dealt with phenomena. Yep. But the thing about it, if your mind has been programmed to think a certain way, you may see this phenomenon and simply edit it out. Now, the thing about the picture is that when we look at it, it looks like a gray alien looking at us through a portal or about to step or come through the portal. Now, America, they said they had developed what was called Project Looking Glass when they were able to see the future and see future events. So we know that time is not linear. Just like you can remember the past, you can also see into the future. You can also see that there's different realities and different possibilities and so on.
Yes, sir.
So my research says that these beings were once like us. As time went on, they mutated for whatever reason and became, smaller with larger heads. They lost their emotional bodies and they became a copy of a copy of a copy. So, which are like a copy of a copy. If you remember, like a cassette tape, if you keep on copying it over and over again, it gets weaker and weaker until it sounds very fuzzy to the point that you can barely hear the original, because that's what happens with the genes when they break down. If you keep on cloning a clone from a clone, that's what's happened to the grays. So basically, them being able to travel back and forth through time, and time is not linear, they have come to collect samples, DNA, and so on, because they're trying to get themselves back, to the ability to not only reproduce male and female, since a lot of them are clones, but also bring back and redevelop the emotional body in which they're dying. Okay. So I believe that eventually they do. And they evolve. This part of the alchemy. But you see, I saw something not too long ago where they talked about humans evolving, and after they got done showing human evolution, they didn't look too different than them great. But I believe that's because they were doing some remote viewing of their own. Okay. So I'm not saying that it will necessarily happen on this timeline, but I know it comes from a particular timeline, but that's what happens. So you live in a now I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because, I want to follow in a certain sequence. But there's a concept of multi-dimensionality, cover that. And we're going to also get more into the history of remote viewing. Okay. So I can start tying it together, because a lot of us, even though we work with forces like Orishas or Loas, angels, saints, and prophets, you know, or believe in a man who can walk on water and turn water into wine, we're still skeptical about things that would relate to that very same thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit more about Val Valerian and how he dealt with the remote viewing aspect of things. Because a lot of people who are remote viewers were able to get information, you know, on these beings. And the thing about it is that remote viewing comes out of the CIA, right? And was even with Army intelligence meant to spy on other countries and to find targets that was hard to reach. They could locate it through something similar to a psychic phenomena, as being able to leave your body and go and spy on countries and nations on the other side of the world.
If I'm not mistaken, I want to say, what was her name? Helena Blavatsky or something like that. She was one of the main, I think, wasn't she like one of their primary assets in regards of having that ability to have psychic ability to be able to remote view, to give them intel and insight in regards to them doing their spying?
Well, I do know that according to their teachings, and that's the Theosophical teachings, she was in touch with a group of beings called Ascended Masters. So, you know, if her psychic skills were developed enough, then she probably would have been able to do, you know, things that are quite similar. She was able to talk to these Ascended Masters, who are beings who probably have been remote viewing and visiting her, you know, if we are to believe it. Some say that, you know, she had like, was one of the founders of the Theosophical Society.
Yeah, I read that for sure. I want to say Dr. York and a few other scholars have presented that. So yeah, I've read that.
Yeah, so, you know, and so but she's not the one. She didn't start what they call remote viewing, you know. They started calling it remote viewing a little bit later, you know, as they started working with the military and so on, but it's probably pretty much the same thing. Because it involves what, you know, the techniques that the Theosophical Society would utilize, you know, in some of their works, you know. So I mean, she had put out 2 volumes of the Isis Unveiled, and another 2 volumes called The Secret Doctrine. Right.
Yeah.
So you can
go ahead, my bad.
So you can get this material from out of a theosophical bookstore. You can probably order it online if you're interested in her works. But there was another brother that preceded her by the name of Paschal Beverly Randolph. And this was a Black man who wrote about ancient sexual mysteries as he studied and went throughout the Middle East. He had a book called, teachings called The Mysteries of Ulysses, teaching how to utilize sexual magic to manifest whatever it is that you wanted. And interesting enough, he named his son Osiris Buddha Krishna. So this was a Black man who lived around the time of Abraham Lincoln.
He named his what?
Paschal Beverly Randolph.
No, you said, what did he name his son?
Osiris Buddha Krishna. Or, you know, yeah.
He was tapped in heavy.
Oh, yeah. Rosicrucianism, spiritualism. You know, spiritualism was actually at one time the second religion of America. They don't talk about that, though. But yeah, you know, but because not everything in America started out as Christian.
Yeah.
And as you know, a lot of people, you know, even those who wrote the Constitution and was responsible for its signing were initiated into various orders.
Facts.
Magical orders.
Well, the Masons, you know, there's a lot of, I mean, there's different types, but that definitely is a major staple in this thing we call America, as far as when you talk about the politics and all the other ish.
Indeed. So the remote viewing, and this, I want to talk about that because I want people to understand something, you know, and how it's usually described as a structured mental practice, where a person attempts to perceive or describe a distant location, object, or event without using their ordinary senses. Okay. Now, people who work with the idea, they frame it as a way of tapping into a broader field of information, and almost like tuning on a radio to a frequency that isn't limited by physical distance. So in most accounts, the process involves quieting the mind, entering a focused state, and allowing expressions or impressions and sketches or sensations to emerge without forcing them. Whether interpreted psychologically, intuitively, metaphysically, or metaphorically, remote viewing is essential about assessing information beyond the immediate sensory field. So you remember you talked about the gray alien emerging out of the portal. What you see is a being that's able to move in and out of our frequency range.
Yeah.
UFOs and everything else. When jets to see them flying by, next thing you know, they see it just disappears and zooms away because it's not operating on the same laws in which our technology operates. So you got researchers such as Russell Targ and Harold Ptah, and they are conducted controlled trials with participants like a man by the name of Ingo Swann, which you could probably find on YouTube, who have formalized the protocols that later became known as the controlled remote viewing. So although the scientific community remains divided on the interpretation of the results, the historical record shows that these programs were real, publicly acknowledged, and shaped the contemporary understanding of remote viewing as a methodical, repeatable practice rather than a spontaneous psychic event. So Val Valerian, now he himself was not a remote viewer. He just simply gathered the information. You see what I mean? Greetings, Sister Nikki. Munam, peace and blessings. So even though he was not a formal government trained viewer like those in the U.S. Army, and we're going to talk about the Stargate program, which we're going to get a little deeper into actually Project Gateway. His work and interviews placed him inside the remote viewing discourse, discussing it as a part of his broader research into consciousness, interdimensionality, multidimensionality, and anomalous perception. So the key evidence comes from an interview with Laura Lee, where Valerian discusses remote viewing. You can find this on YouTube, if my memory serves me right. Go ahead and look for it. Look for Val Valerian at some point in time. So you're not going to find as much of his work on YouTube as you'll find it in his books. You probably get that off of Scribed. Also, you have Atlantis. He talks about Atlantis. He talks about Lemuria. He talks about consciousness, origins, the Greys, mind control, Tavistock Institute type things, and UFO remote viewing. So this shows how that remote viewing was part of the research landscape and public discussions in this particular circle. Now, his role is to synthesize UFO research, consciousness studies, multidimensional models, and government/military programs. This aligns with his broader identity as the creator of the Matrix book series, as distinct from the brilliant works of Sophia Steward. So Valerian attempted to map the entire paradigm of consciousness and non-ordinary perception. Another thing, too, is that he discussed and integrated remote viewing concepts. But again, he himself was not the viewer. So just in case, when you do research, you'll see that he's actually doing research of his own. There are also declassified archives that show the CIA and Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, supported remote viewing research beginning in the early 1970s. And this work took place at Stanford Research Institute, SRI, under programs such as Scanning, that's SCANTE, and later Project Stargate. And these programs involve controlled remote viewing experiments, intelligence gathering trials, and research by figures like Russell Targ, and write these names down, Russell Targ, that's T-A-R-G, and Harold Ptah and Ingo Swann. So when you get a chance, look up Project Gateway. Now, interestingly enough, too, okay, you might remember that there was a movie called Stargate all that time around the 90s when all this material was coming out, where you had a group of special operations and they traveled into the Stargate and they went and fought Ra, who they encountered as being the sun god, but he was actually an alien that looked like a gray alien that had taken human form, right? So keep in mind, all this is another 9 years it came out to become a whole series. Now, remote viewing being linked to the CIA and Gateway process. I just want to inform brothers and sisters to understand what you're up against if you think you're going to just go ahead and fight the establishment with the weapons that they give you, okay? Because it actually, you need to think again because they got psychic warriors, they got remote viewers, and they're also working, with beings that are beyond this dimension And as the last result, they have even been known to consult psychic detectives. Okay, so even though they talk about all this stuff being make-believe, in secret, they'll utilize it if they have to. You see, so if you're trying to use like Karl Marx type materialist ways of thinking and thinking to battle this beast that way, you got another thing coming. This is why Brother Bobby Hemmett was trying to get you to understand metaphysics. Okay, because you're up against something that's beyond just what you think technology is. Okay, so, and I'm not trying to get you to try to go out and get no guns and try to fight. I just want you to understand the nature of what you're dealing with. The information is already out there, so 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to get crucified. It's already out there. The way these folks think is that, hey, there's so much information overload, you don't know what to believe, and half the people won't believe you no way. So
Yeah.
that's the way they look at it. Anyway,
but
you
real
got
quick, because you dropping as you always do. You dropping some bombs, like you dropping bombs. But I want to make sure that we don't like we don't like drive by what you're saying, because you're saying a lot. But the one thing that I have to like, it will resonate with all of it resonates with me. But when you talk about metaphysics, meta means to be over, correct? Meta is overstand, right? To overstand,
Right.
you know what I'm saying, to be over. So just that alone, if we really think about it, I'm gonna take it from a lower frequency to a higher frequency. If we really think about it, you look at the motherfucker who made that platform, Facebook. There's a reason why he transformed and translated that name from Facebook to Meta. You feel me? So that's a lower frequency, right? But then now we go into the higher frequencies, and there's a reason why. And shout out Ibatanu to the honorable master teacher and the elder, the honorable Dr. Delbert Blair called his center the Meta Center. So you got one level of the polarity with Meta, and then you got another level of the polarity of Meta. There's a reason why they wanted to attempt or tried to attempt to murder Dr. Blair, because he was the real Meta of what we're talking about with metaphysics.
Right.
I say all that to say, family, we have the ability to be the true metas. We are the metas, just like we are the Netchers. We are the Orishas. Anywho, but I just want to say all that to say, like, there's levels to this shit. And you breaking down a whole lot of them. So I don't want to keep interrupting, but I want to try to make sure that everybody's like tapped into what you're sharing, because you're dropping it down. So I hope that everybody's picking it up. So that's all I got, brother.
Well, just like we, I encourage us to look deeper into metaphysics. Also look into the Metu Netter, the Medu Netter, the Medu, the Metu, the Meta. You see, so make sure that you get a chance to research some of these names too. I think these are names to know. Later on, I don't want to cover him today, but I also want to talk about a man named Peter Thiel a little bit later too, who created Palantir, and they basically think that it's their job to spy on us, okay, and take away your freedom. And he's very deep off into this whole idea of transhumanism, and he's literally asked at an interview, let's see, Peter Thiel, I think it's Thiel. He is asked in an interview about humanity and its right to survive. And when he's asked that, the man hesitates because he doesn't believe in humanity. Okay, he believes in machines. So you got people already wanting to replace this world with the machine world. Even the guy, the head of Google, the owner of Google, I can't think of his name, Jeff Bezos.
Oh, Amazon? Amazon?
Yeah, I mean Amazon. My bad.
Yeah. But they all in cahoots. They all in bed.
Yeah. He says he wants to replace over 45% of his workforce with machines.
Yeah, and he already working on it too. Eli Musk. You got Eli Musk. He out there with that saying ish. Eli Musk. Shout out to Master Yasir. I love when he called him Eli Musk. Eli Musk.
But yeah.
He said, young people, I know what I'm saying. It's Musk. Oh man, I gotta holler at Baba. Go ahead, Baba. Go ahead. My bad. I just having some fun.
Hey man, we gotta have some fun.
Yeah,
we gotta balance out the equation.
Yeah, that's facts. That's facts. Yeah. But so, you dropping bombs, man. Keep dropping them.
Somebody correctly mentions Mama Nature, because that's the Medu Netter. Yeah. Mama Nature. Mutter, meaning the great mother, which we have actually evolved into the word mother. You know, so the matrix is the womb. It's an enclosing, which we're all living and being a part of, and having to reconstruct from the inside to our experience. So, you know, so we talk about Project Gateway, and this is where the U.S. Army Intelligence Security Command, INSCOM, they talk about altered states of consciousness. Once again, they're dealing with altered states of consciousness. And they talk about brain hemisphere synchronization, out-of-body experiences, expanded awareness, and models of consciousness based on physics, right, and biomedicine. So even though it's not so much of a remote viewing manual, it explores how deep consciousness might access non-ordinary information, which overlaps conceptually with remote viewing. So there was an Army officer, and the name escapes me right now, but he wrote this particular report talking about hypnosis, transcendental meditation, biofeedback, out-of-body states, and quantum models of consciousness. So they have all this in the military and everything else in deeper levels. So I mean, you know, if they're doing something with this information, if it's classified, you know, or beyond classified, you know, and beyond top secret, beyond classified, because they're studying human consciousness. So remember, I think I mentioned this before, that around the time of Obama, they got away from studying Human Genome Project, and they put funding into studying human consciousness. And then you're noticing that alongside that is this boom in development in technology, you know, stem cell research, you know, and being able to see if they can link consciousness with data, or where does consciousness start and data begin, and so on. Going further, the CIA also dealt with programs in which the USA was funded on intelligence agencies, exploring altered states of information, and both involved Fort Meade personnel. And both were part of the Cold War era, consciousness era, and both appear in the same declassified archive collections. So again, you see how they study consciousness. Remember, even in the military, you discover that when it comes to being trained as a soldier, you know, they see when it comes to warfare, pardon me, about 80% of it is psychological, okay? So it's all about dealing with your mind. That's why they got to keep your mind limited, so that can only expand so far. They want to keep you focused on celebrities or on the block and so on. They don't want you thinking globally, let alone cosmically.
But that's life though, Baba. Like for real, if you think about it, I mean, the 80-20 rule, that's something I learned in business. But if you think about it, I feel like that applies to everything, man. Like 80-20 rule, because especially when you talk about military, and when I think about military, one of the most prolific minds that I love reading and studying his work, because I feel like it gives me the potential to tap into another level, and that's David Goggins. Are you familiar with David Goggins?
Yes, yeah.
I love that brother, because you talk about going to another place, like that brother, like he's just different. You know what I'm saying? I would love to interview him, because he's different. You feel me? Like he talks about his story. I forgot the name of his book, but he got a powerful book. And he talks about his journey into becoming a Navy SEAL, and the racism and all the bullshit that he had to go through and overcome. Not, you know, it's one thing just to go through the training to become a SEAL within itself, but then as a brother, you know what I'm saying, to deal with it. Like, so it was just dope. But I say all that to say, his book helped me go through my first initiation, because I remember going to the river, and I went at a time when it was cold outside. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I had to program my mind to know that, you know, my mind doesn't have to be in the same place that my body is. So therefore, I had to kind of, you know, extract where I was mentally to be able to, I feel like, deal with what I was experiencing physically. And it was so dope, because that is a real thing. And when you really tap into it and you really like take yourself to that level or make yourself go to that level, there's nothing the mind can't do. I mean, absolutely nothing. This dude ran a marathon on a broken leg or ankle or foot. I can't remember what it was, because he was able to detach his mind from his body to, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, this is a real thing. So what we're talking about is real, family. Like, I've experienced it, I've done it myself. So I know how real this is. So we don't have to allow ourselves to be constricted mentally, emotionally, psychologically, where our bodies are. So we got to really, this goes back to the transformation and from the realm we're in now, and the ability to project into the meta. And I feel like that's what you're giving an overview and a dissertation on tonight.
Right.
And so, you know,
in fact, you know, getting into the meta aspect of it, right?
Mhm.
I'm going to switch gears here because I think we got the message about the military involvement, the CIA, and everything else.
Mhm.
So let's talk about a little bit more about the Matrix book material, right? And how the writings treat multidimensionality. So the concept of multidimensionality is a fundamental idea of the architecture of existence itself. In his books, he frames human incarnation as a temporary immersion, check this out, into third density reality, one layer within a vast stack of experiential planes. One layer within a vast stack of experiential planes, right? His view is that consciousness is not produced by the brain, but it's a multidimensional entity projecting a portion of itself into physical form. Remember, Ipanri, yourself that dwells in heaven and you dwelling on earth. I don't know if you remember Deepak Chopra doing, I think he may have been on Oprah's show, or maybe he was doing a lecture. But I recall him telling the audience and blowing them away, he said, you guys are not actually here. Now, your avatar is, and a portion of your consciousness is injected into the avatar in which you believe to be the totality of you. All right. So this aligns with the structure described in the Matrix material, where he outlines experimental loops and so-called reincarnational cycles, and the idea that the soul navigates multi-dimensional densities. That's part of its evolution. So his work emphasizes what we call life is only a narrow bandwidth of a much larger spectrum of being. I remember years ago, Bobby Haru said that only 10% of your being is actually seen. So there's a huge part of you that's 90% that is unseen with the senses, or what you perceive of as the five senses, because you got more than five senses, maybe about 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 of them. So the multidimensional model is the idea that the Earth is a game environment designed for growth, polarity, exploration, and mastery, where it is described that incarnations are strategic entries into a controlled density where consciousness learns through limitation. Okay, so therefore, you have limited yourself because you see, in order to have a meaningful experience, all knowingness has to have a vessel and a container in which a form it could take to be a unique expression of allness. So in this framework, higher density aspects of the self observe and guide the incarnated portion, creating a layer identity structure so that only a portion of an actual incarnate in this dimension is why this discuss astral events, the so-called life trap, how all mechanisms operate across dimensions to shape the soul's journey. So this multidimensionality is presented as a functional system with rules, loops, and checkpoints that consciousness navigates across lifetimes. So what you think is just one lifetime, there are many lifetimes happening all at once. When you study ancient Hermetic tradition, or you get into Hermetic tradition where Isis or Aset is supposed to say, I am yesterday, today, and tomorrow. No mortal man sees beyond my veil. She's also talking about that when you're identifying with the finite, you will not be able to understand the totality of the simultaneity of past, present, and future, all happening at the same time. This is why when you tune into the spirit realm family, spirits appear to be able to predict the future because they're not limited to time and space the way we are in these physical forms. Valerian also connects multidimensionality to cosmic perspectives, arguing that beings from different densities interact with Earth and influence human development. And this is where his works blends UFO research, consciousness studies, and metaphysics into a single model where extraterrestrial intelligences, astral entities, and higher aspects of self all occupy different layers of the same multidimensional continuum. And this is why the Matrix series is described as an attempt to chronicle and make sense of the entire paradigm what we know as consciousness. So in this case, a multidimensionality is presented as the key to understanding that not only human evolution, but also the broader ecosystem of intelligences operating in, around, and throughout our reality. Now, I want to go shift gears because I haven't really even started talking about Neo, right? Or Trinity or any of the characters in the movies yet, because you just got to get started, got to get a little momentum. So,
Look, Now that I was going to say that they've been talked about a lot on this channel. It's always a reference point because it's always something I feel like it's always something that could be pulled out of that matrix, you know, out of that movie, out of that series, because it's powerful. It's a powerful piece of work. I wanted to share the cover of the book, but I don't want to interrupt the flow. But the name of the book of Sophia Steward family, if y'all haven't checked it out, it's called The Third Eye, Where It All Begins by Sophia Steward. Powerful piece of work. That's what gives us the foundation of what we're talking about, this thing called the Matrix that we saw on the big screen. It started with her work, you know, as being a seer and what she put into the you know, into words, into a book.
And in that book, in that text, you'll see where she also shows documents of her battles and legal battles with the Wachowski brothers.
Yep. Stolen work.
So I think it's a good reference to have when we get an understanding of the seeds and the foundations that were laid to what we have today. You know, as far as the understanding, because as far as I'm concerned, that sister was a prophetess in the ability to be able to write. Because people got to understand when it comes to the world of divination, writing is one form of divination. Writing stories, when you go into trance and let the mind take over and just write, you'll see that you're guided by a higher source. You know, so other writers, you know, Guido Mutra spoke about being able to invent once he's aligned and consciousness comes through and he starts inventing, right? And then you've heard of Nikola Tesla, who would go to sleep and wake up with the design of the model of the invention implanted in his conscious. And even the guy who came up with the popular Star Trek series, Gene Roddenberry, he was channeling and tapping into entities. The lady who came up with Harry Potter, she said Harry Potter came to her and taught her what to write.
Well, let me give a shout out to. I'm gonna give a shout out to two children of Shango. First, I'm gonna give a shout out to Baba Khepra Ptah, because the very first interview we did, when I tell you, like, you was channeling, I mean, you was channeling. I'm like, yo, that's why I was laughing and smiling. So I'm like, yo, this dude is like, he is all the way tapped in. I don't even believe that was you most of the show, like, for real, because I know what possession looks like, and it looks different ways and different types of, you know what I'm saying, forms and environments and things of that nature. But I saw it the first time I interviewed you. I'm like, yo, this dude, like, you talk about, like, you was literally, like, that's what you were doing. Like, you was tapped into another level. I'm just like, yo, this is crazy. Like, we getting info directly from the pyramids, like from Kemet right now, live in living color. Like, literally, like Kenan, Damon, like all the Wayans live in living color. We're getting direct downloads from Kemet right here, right now. I was like, yo, this shit is crazy.
I said. And the thing about it,
Shango did that when he wrote this book, Starseeds, because that book literally was a download that was written in one night. And it came out of nowhere. It wasn't nothing that I planned, nothing that I thought about, that I had a goal for, none of that, bro. It was just like, it just came one night, like, shoo. And this was before all this technology. I had to literally write it, pen to pad or pencil to pad, wrote the whole book in one download, because it was a download from another consciousness, a whole nother level of energy, man. So that's a real thing.
Indeed. And that's why we have to understand something. We're all channels. We're all channeling. We're all downloading information. A lot of times now, some of us channel our ancestors. Some of us channel information where we're inventing something or bringing some type of art into the world. Some of us are here to channel music, like Michael Jackson and Prince, you know what I mean? And other great singers, soul music and so on, because it was music that was tapping into a source called soul. That's why it's called soul. Even got soul food. Hell, our culture is soul because we're tapping into another power within ourselves in order to bring forth creativity. You see, so, you know, when it comes to you being able to deal with knowledge, right, you got to give yourself permission to receive. And once you get in the flow of things, you'll see that you're getting downloads, you know. When you get into the idea of, let's say when you're going between sleep states, you know, and you're getting downloads, and I mentioned this before, make sure you have a pen and pad next to you or something to write with or something to record when you get up, because the information that you are channeling in your sleeping and wake state, it can disappear when you start moving around. Okay. A lot of people come to me, and I can tell when I, give them a consultation that I'm like, okay, I can tell that you get a lot of downloads. So this is what you do. Another thing too, for those who are familiar with this guy's work. Now, this guy's Gregg Braden, right? His material has recently been getting a lot of popularity too. Now, he gives a lot of homage to Tibetans, you know, the Nag Hammadi sources. He talks about Gnosticism in Eastern traditions. A lot of our ancestors were doing it. Even in the churches, we were tapping in. Okay? So keep in mind that everyone who is aligned with their destiny is actually channeling. You talk about Dragon Ball, you talk about Goku going Super Saiyan and having what we call Ultra Instinct when he's able to block and move out the way automatically without the mind getting in the way. That's how you know that you're aligned. The problem is that we've been conditioned to let our minds get in the way of everything. So at some point in time, when you sit down and you have a pen and paper, just go ahead and ignore your thoughts and write whatever comes to mind and see what you have, what you put down, and see what you put up, what you come up with. Minds are getting in the way of things. It's getting in the way of the flow of our life, our hesitations, our fears, you know, whether it's dealing with our amygdala getting in the way and keeping us on fight or flight, you know, or even parts of our temporal, like our brain. The doctors say that epilepsy of the temporal lobe is what you call deja vu, but that's their way of trying to explain it away. But deja vu is the ability to travel past, present, and future, and you're coming into that moment that you realize that you've been there before because you're not confined to time and space. And sometimes you'll discover that when you're experiencing deja vu, you can predict what's about to happen a couple seconds before it happens. So I want to talk a little bit about Gregg Braden, because his information has been getting a lot of play as of late. But it's not new. That's what I'm saying. However, what I say is that his information doesn't dwell on the scary stuff as much as it talks about becoming Neo. So we look at his work is talking about reality is not empty space, but a living field. Consciousness interacts with this field via emotion. You know, that's why they talk about Oshun being the mother of Eshu, because she represents the desire to bring things into being. And in order to bring things into being, and you have a desire, in order to make it happen, you tap into Oshun and Eshu. You see what I mean? Oshun deals with the feeling, the desire, the energy in motion, the emotion, which is not a bad thing if you understand how to let it be your partner, or you become a partner with it. A lot of your emotions come from the subconscious. So when you're able to impress upon your will things of which you would like to do in life, then you can awaken that Neo part of yourself, that Trinity part of yourself, and basically take control of what's going on in your life within the matrix. So Braden also talks about how the heart, not just the brain, is a primary interface. In fact, the heart wave goes beyond and extends further than the brain waves. And in this research, it has been covered in what we now call the Heart Math Institute, which means your brain waves and heart waves is not only picking up on what's in the field, but is also sending messages into the field around you. So each and every one of us have the ability to receive and send messages into the field where people often pick up on our thoughts, and we in turn receive the thoughts of others, especially picking up on the emotions of those around us. So how people feel and think literally has an effect on the surrounding environment and the atmosphere itself. Thus goes to show you that there are subtle levels of our existence that can be felt and in some cases measured, for instance, through what they call Kirlian photography. And you can pick up on the aura of the surrounding living beings. Braden also goes on to speak about quantum field theory, the holographic universe, and understanding ancient prayers and ritual traditions, where we live in the field with the abilities to send out thought forms as well as pick up what's within the field. So when you're doing like things like sympathetic magic, or let's say what I spoke about earlier, when you're invoking the God form, like through Kabbalistic magic or even Egyptian magic or Commission magic, you imagine yourself taking on the form of a netter or the form of an Orisha even, and you allow the energy to work towards you and through you. You see, we're all part of the all. And in the Jiobe, it talks in the Ifa, it talks about how the Ori is referred to as an ocean, and that this ocean helps to create all the Orisha, including the ancestors. So everything is dealing with consciousness. We are consciousness. You do not have to worry about death. All that happens when you go through the process of death is that you simply shift reference points. That's it. That's it. There's a you here, there's a you in the past, and you in the future, all living at the same time. Because in reality, when you go beyond the construct of time, there is no time. That's why your dreams, which are 3 minutes long, appear to be hours and even days. And most of your dreams, when you remember your dream, you remember from backwards to front. Next time you're laying in the bed after you have a dream, lay there for a while and remember your dream. Okay? And don't move. When you start moving your body, that's when you start forgetting your dream.
Baba, you said a lot real quick. I don't want to throw you off, but can you kind of elaborate just a tad about when you spoke about the Ori and the Ori being like almost like connected to the ocean and like the unlimitedness, but Ori, Egbe, Orisha, ancestors, like all that you said is equated to past, present, and future. Can you kind of break that down just a little bit for those who might not be familiar with the Ifa or Isheshe tradition, but how that all kind of translate, no matter what tradition you're a part of or you believe in, or faces and whatever, it's all something that we all live and we all experience.
Sometimes you can go beyond this time and space paradigm and you will see a future event. Okay? And this is when you may have a dream and it translates as deja vu when you encounter that particular situation. Now, as far as the spiritual realm, you talk about the Egbe. Egbe are your heavenly mates. They're dwelling in heaven while you're dwelling on earth. Now, there are times when you may have seen people go for divination and they were supposed to receive some type of wealth. And their wealth wasn't manifesting here. Why? Because it's manifesting somewhere else. You see? So a ritual has to be done so that all the stuff that's manifesting in that realm is destroyed there so it can manifest here. You see what I mean? So you being a multidimensional being, you have to understand that there's aspects of you that's not only here, but other localities, because locality is actually an illusion. Okay? This is why you can do distance healing. This is why you can do rituals for others and it work for them no matter how far away they are. And that's why I want to get into quantum entanglement eventually. Because anything that you ever interacted with, any person that you've made love with, you're going to always be connected to. Quantum entanglement. There's always going to be a psychic connection to that person. You see what I mean? This is why you want to choose who you're dealing with and what you do. You want to make wise decisions because what you're doing is not only affecting you now, but it's also affecting your future selves. So this is why we do Ebo and so on, so we can redirect that energy and change and shift you to a timeline where you will not experience certain things that are unnecessary for your growth. When you're dealing with ancestors, the ancestors appear to be in the past, but they can communicate with you as if they're in the right now with you, because they are. This is how your ancestors can also see future events and tell you might not want to go there. Because if you do, this is what's going to happen. Even when it comes to Ifa, when you're dropping the Opwele, the Babalao, the Awo drops the Opwele, or when the Ialarisha, Babalarisha will cast the Dilo go in the shells, they're looking at probability, but they also understand that reality is not fixed. That's why you can do what is necessary to change the outcome of an event.
Oh, okay. So listen, because I saw you was going through the notes, but can you speak to the significance of that? Because that's something that I've dealt with people where I feel like some people, depending on their faith and their ability to like really tap in and believe in where they are and what needs to be done in order for that transformation to happen. But others, I feel like it's almost like the hamster wheel in Groundhog's Day, where they'll do the divination, they'll do the Abbar, but the self-sacrifice, the sacrifice of self, the inner work, you know what I'm saying? The understanding, overstanding, outerstanding, understanding, that work's not being done. So to me, it goes right back to what you were just saying. In order for something to happen in this realm, something has to happen in another place, another space, in time. And that is the realest thing ever, because I could see somebody who was a client that I've dealt with in Divine for one time, and the next time I see them or talk to them, or we have another conversation and consultation, they did quantum leaps and like made major progress with their journey and their path or whatever's going on. But then I've had others where I've worked with for a year and a half, 2 years, and it's still the same thing every single time, like Groundhog's Day. I know you've dealt with it because you've been doing it longer than me. So
yeah, well, you know, that's the problem, is that they're not tapping into the source code. Okay?
Yes, sir.
They're still thinking symbolically. That's the thing. You see what I mean? They're still thinking in terms of symbols. That's the reason why no matter what kind of asshole the president may be, people, you know, elect them over and over again, because they're looking at this superhero aspect of who this person might be. You see what I mean? I'm going to put it to you like this. If they throw somebody that look like us in front of us, we'll vote for them because they say he's a great symbol, right? But I'm going to tell you something. If that person is still down with the agenda of the oppressive regime, then you're basically pouring gasoline into the fire that's going to burn your house down. Now, what do I mean by that? One of the issues is that us thinking symbolically and not thinking in terms of the essence. We're not thinking in terms of like when you put 2 + 2 together and get 4. Somebody said you could put 2 and 2 together and get 22, and it'll be the same thing. No, it's not. It's not the same thing. The only reason why you get 2 and 2 together and you fucking get 22 is because you're still thinking with symbols and you're not tapping into the source code. You're not tapping into the self that needs to be fixed and worked with. So they'd rather sacrifice all these animals and sacrifice Noah's Ark, and their life is still just as fucked up before they even got to reading. So what you have to understand is that you have to do the work internally so that things are manifest on the outside. That's how Neo is able to defeat an Agent Smith, because he has to go within and understand, wait a minute, I'm doing this the wrong way. And he taps into something, an unseen principle that's called love. You see what I mean? Something intangible. Agent Smith can't think, he cannot pinpoint what it is, okay? No. Because he can only think in terms of variables and what things appear to be from a left brain view of mathematics, which goes back to why the architect in the Matrix movie, he cannot get rid of this anomaly. He keeps on trying to fix it because he's only thinking in terms of mathematics and variables, right? But again, he has to have something to balance the equation. So therefore, he created what? Well, he had to tap into a sentient program, an intuitive program called the Oracle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But check this out. You're going to education. They're teaching you about how to deal with the left brain, but they're not even teaching you how to entirely utilize that.
Mm-mm.
So you think in terms of putting things down and constantly calculating, but it's missing the other part, which is the intuitive part. You see what I mean? So you need to balance out the equation in order to be able to look and take it back into the center. Because once you're able to break it down to its square root, you control the variations.
So let me ask you this real quick, because what it sounds like to me is you're taking the one as being isolated in isolation as the one, but then it sounds like you're bringing it back into the one now being a part of the all. So now the all is the all. You know what I'm saying? The one is part of the all. The one is no longer separated. As above, so below, as within, so without. Is that not what we're talking about?
Indeed, because the dot, you see the dot within the circle, right? If there's just a dot without a second dot, there's no reference. If there's a dot within the circle, then you see where the dot and the circle are not separate. There cannot be a circle without a center. What's the purpose of a dot if there's no circle? What's the purpose of a dot? That's like throwing a pebble into the pool and not getting ripples. It represents, you throw the pebble in the pool, you get a ripple that stands forth and brings forth creation. That's a ripple effect. That's what's going on inside your head. That's what's going on with your neurons. And creating a hologram that you see around you with the brain chemist, with the lights and electricity flashing inside your head, where you're talking about interference patterns was also assisting in what you see in your head, creating a hologram in here, okay? In which you project the hologram around you out there, because the observer and the observed are not separate from each other. The one in the all and the all in the one. You see what I mean? So when you get these religions that only deal with half of the equation, they talk about, oh, we believe that there's one God, but they're looking for some one guy sitting on the throne somewhere judging everybody, and they don't see how they're connected to it. So they're constantly wishing, hoping, and praying that there's one God that's separated from everything else, right? And have nothing to do with them. Even if their book tells them that their God is closest to them is the jugular vein, they somehow ignore that. Right? Or even when the Bible tells you that God is within you, they continue looking for the symbols. They're saying that you got to go through another symbol to get to something that is beyond comprehensible, because they cannot see beyond symbols. You see, in the mystical aspect, you become filled with it. You see, here's the thing. Even the Christian religion is filled with what we call the mystical interpretation of things, if you take it back to the African way of looking at things. I get it. You know, you go and embrace the concept of love, and you become filled with a frequency that connects you with everything. They call it being filled with the Holy Spirit, right? In the Yoruba tradition, it's being filled with Ella. And how the Baba was getting downloads because he's connected with Ella. Ella means two things. Ella is the light, right? Arumela, the source is my light, and Ella also means to split. What is Ella splitting? Basically, the frequencies that you're receiving from the etheric realm, and you're basically able to differentiate these into thoughts and tell the person on the mat what's going on in their life.
Whoa, wait a god doggone minute. Listen, I didn't want to interrupt, but when you said that, there was a lot of things you said, and when you were talking about the creator and like how the different I could hear that song. What if God was one of us? You remember that song? I don't know who sang that song. Little white lady, a white girl, but that was a dope song because not what if God was one of us? God damn it, God is all of us.
Right.
You are God. Right. I'm looking at God right here. Every comment that I see, that comment was left by God. I'm looking in the mirror in the reflection. I'm looking at God. God ain't what if one of us? God is all of us.
Right. There's something you should understand. Great God is a live-in man. You might can fool the people sometime, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And now I see the light. You got to stand up for your right. Right?
Get up, stand up.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Right? So, yeah, you know, that's what we're talking about. So we're taking it back to the concept of the quantum field theory. You see? It's not just a technical or academic interpretation. However, it's dealing with bridging, right? Use and discoveries of quantum physics come in to support a worldview of deep interconnectedness.
Sure.
We're talking about the perspective which grounded in the idea that the quantum field is not just a physical substrate, but a conscious relational medium that links all things. So you cannot do anything and hurt your fellow sister or brother without it somehow hurting yourself, because they're just another reflection of you on another level. Remember I told you about when I was in the Qigong class and I was able to feel my consciousness inside of the bodies of other practitioners, and I was able to locate the pain that people was feeling in their bodies. You see what I mean? Why? Because at that particular time, we saw we were all connected at the top, right?
Yes.
And then it's like a pyramid. Then you come into physical forms, and basically you're seeing God shaking hand with God, playing with God, making love to God, being God. You see what I mean? So we're all the various experiences of God. And this is the key to you understanding your immortality, because all is all. Nothing is going to ever be taken away from the all.
You can't, because you ain't the all. You can't, you'll never be able to do that. That's the thing, man. Listen, oh man, that's the thing that I give gratitude, you know, for just my own little personal connection to the creator, because I've never had, I ain't gonna say I never feared nothing, because that wouldn't be true, but I also will say I never really gave a fuck about something that most people would probably say you should fear, because I've always had that strong connection of knowing that I'm a child of God. I know I'm a child of the creator, and I always known that, I've always felt that. So therefore, any opponent, any enemy, any adversity, any of that, fuck you. You're going to have to see me on every level, on every dimension, because I'm here to get it in, and I will go all in, all day, every day, all night to fuck you up if you cross my path, if we got to go like this right here, because that's the way that's what I was made. I don't seek for that. I don't look for drama. I don't look for beef. I don't look for nothing with nobody. I come in peace. I promise I do. But please don't come at me to try to take away my peace or take away anything that is of my peace, of my part of the all, because at that point, I'm willing to go all in, to go all the way to make sure that I eliminate you by any means and all means necessary. Period.
Sure. You know, and I mean, just like, you know, you're speaking about that aspect in the tree, right? There's a Herakuti factor, Ogun factor one has within themselves. There's a Shango or Heru factor one has within themselves. There's a Heteru or Oshun factor one has within themselves. See, all this deals with the inner tree of life, in which each and every one of us is a model of. You see? So we're dealing with what is called tapping into the field, how you become a Jedi. The Star Wars movie, which I consider to be a matrix of its own, where Luke has to avenge his father. He also, you see, keep in mind,
Lion King did that too.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So his father avenged his mother. Luke ends up avenging his father. It still balances out. So the feeling we're talking about, it's connecting consciousness, matter, and intention. The Inner Light Journal, where Gregg Braden is being interviewed, he talks about how he sees the universe as an intricate web of energy that connects everything. So in this matrix, it acts as a bridge between inner experience and outer reality. So as I may add, that this is similar to how a Jedi would tap into the use of the Force. You see what I mean? So we're all potential Neos and Jedi or Sith, right? In the Star Wars movies, it also talks about how to tap into this unified medium called the Force, where thoughts, emotions, and physical events are entangled. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What? Of course. Look, I didn't want to interrupt. You know, I'm always chime in, but look, look, I gotta give you the runway so you can take flight. I don't want to interrupt. Yes, sir. Of course, you're making sense. A lot of it.
Yeah, yeah. And I know you're getting this. I just want to, make sure that people is on the in the chat, they're getting, because I know it seems like we got some brilliant folks in the chat though. I can already tell.
Man, the tribe is I feel like that, but that's why we're all here, Baba, because their alignment is divine with us. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I learn from them just like they learn from us. And it's like that's what makes this thing so sacred, because there's no pedestal. There is no, you know what I'm saying? Ain't none of that, because I don't even believe in none of that. And so everybody who rock with us, they rock with us because of authenticity, and they rocking with something that they believe that's real. Sure. And I feel like they looking in the mirror and the reflection of what is a part of them, just like I am when I see these comments, how I'm looking at them. So ain't nobody ever gonna be better than me, and I ain't never gonna be better than nobody else. And trust and believe, the tribe, they tapped in. That's why they here. They tapped in for sure.
I family.
Yes,
and that's the whole thing. Ego is, they say ego is edging God out, and part of it is because it's caught on big eyes and little U's. So
one more time, bring that back one more time.
Yeah. So
one more time, please bring that back one more time.
God, ego is edging God out, because they're caught up on big eyes and little U's. As a gods from the nation of gods and earth, we used to break that down all the time. So we're talking about you and I versus all. That is universal, right? Universe, all. And then you reverse that and it gets lost revenue, because the world is a marketplace where there's exchange. Yoruba teaches that the world is a marketplace. Who runs the marketplace? What is she? A hurricane. What is the hurricane? It's connected with the mind. So when I see people with a lot of Osameji energy, I'm asking them, you having a hard time going to sleep, brother? Then you need to get your pen and pad out and write some shit down so that your mind can be at ease. Got to bring it from heaven to earth.
Yes.
So, so I wanted to do a quick review, about the about what's in this particular book. Now this is the only book. It's just I have to have this copy on hand right now. You know what I mean? The Divine Matrix, but the idea of a matrix is found in Ifa, because all of, like Odu, that's the matrix. Odu are wombs, enclosures of stories, science, teachings, mathematics, herbs, healings, remedies, songs. You see, the history of the people of West Africa. But we're also drawing our own Odu. Okay, so it's not just West African tradition. Odu is universal. And the thing is that I'm trying to get people to also explore the concept of universal principles, because I understand why a lot of us want to find who we are, culture, and so on, which is a beautiful thing. But do not deny universal principle, because there's things that are universal, just like the concept of matrix. That's a worldwide phenomenon, you see? So, so Braden, he dealt with the references of quantum entanglement as scientific support for the idea that once things are connected, they remain connected across space and time. So in a recent video, he also talks about how once connected matter remains linked forever. So we're talking about these connections that we're having right now. These connections are forever. Those memories you have, those are forever. You can go back and you may remember having this horrible breakup. You can go back in your mind and heal that relationship in the mind, so that it no longer fucks with you on a subconscious level and keeps you full of shame and guilt, because that's how they also control you, by keeping you feeling shame of things you know, that sometimes are not even in your control and guilty about things to keep you stuck in the past. So if you're caught up in guilt, then it got you stuck in the past, you see. If they got you caught up in fear, they got you afraid of dealing with the future. You're looking at the future of what can go wrong, but you're never dealing with the present. And when you look at the word present, it is now. You spell now backwards, it's one. You have one, right? Not only just one, not just one in having one, but it also sounds like being the number one. So when you're in the present, you're at oneness, attunement, at one-ment, atonement. You see what I mean? So Braden sees the quantum field as a bridge between inner and outer worlds, implying that human consciousness can influence physical reality through the field. And this is where he diverges from mainstream physics and interprets quantum theory as evidence that mind and matter are not separate. Mind and matter are not separate. Mind, which is also dwells within matter and also reborn from matter and expresses it through matter. Hence, matter, mat, the mother, the matrix. You see what I mean? The matriarch. It's not necessarily anything negative or positive. It's just how you deal with the world in which you live in. You see, because some people may see all these challenges in which we lived in. Look at how it's shaped my life. Look at how I've seen negativity just take over the world. Well, I got some news for you. Look at all your heroes. And every hero, what makes the hero interesting is that they make mistakes. And sometimes a lot of your heroes, you'd have find out that they done some fucked up shit that nobody knew about, and it comes to the surface.
Listen. Shout out to Maximum Riser. She said the dark part of that Gemini just came out. Listen. Go ahead, right? Baba, get him.
So we're talking about the bridging of science and spirituality, a theme highlighted, in various traditions lately, more and more when you're getting into quantum physics and so forth. So we're looking at the possibility through this new quantum research and how it's combined with metaphysical research and mysticism that the universe is conscious, humans are co-creators, reality is participatory, and everything is connected through a subtle field. So, we are not disconnected. We're connected in so many ways. Now, you have your individual experience, but keep in mind that somebody has to be you, because God wants to experience all things through God's creation, which is not separate in that regard, because God can experience life through the expressions of self. So what they talk about an oversoul, and right, in Eastern mysticism. They talk about the Paramatman and the Atman and the Jiva, right? When you get into Hindu or Sanatana Dharma and so on, right? You're talking about the Apanari and the Yoruba tradition. You got your Ori and your Ori Inu, and you got your Oriade and Ori Inu being accessed through the belly button. And then you do some research, and then you're talking about how the belly or the stomach, there's neurons in the stomach, there's neurons in the gut. So you literally have an inner head in your stomach, which is why you want to make sure that things that you eat and put into your stomach is not causing an imbalance in you, because the food that you eat is also information. Just like in the movie when a Merovingian had poisoned an old girl and had her fall out, because he was basically saying that when she consumed the cake, she consumed the program. You see what I mean? So you got to be aware of the information that you're taking in, because you're downloading all this into your being. What you eat, the things that you read about, who you're sleeping with, places in which you like to hang out. A lot of people talk about they got their pots, their Orisha pots, but you also connect with the Orisha by going out into the environment where the Orisha dwells.
Aspects of nature, yeah.
Indeed. So, when we summarize, we're talking about the quantum field theory, scientific language of an ancient truth where everything is connected and everything communicates and consciousness participates in reality. We see this quantum field, right? And quantum basically being all these things all the way down on a micro level, right? Later on we'll talk more about fractals, which I'm sure that is becoming a topic as well. And that's where fractals, where everything is made up of self-similar parts and so on. So the smaller things go, you see how similar they are to that in which they make up, right? This is another aspect of the holographic. Indeed. Yeah. So the key insight is simple, but radical in the eyes of mainstream science. Now, keep in mind, I'm not just going to entirely dismiss everything about mainstream science because it has its place, right? Some of it is meant to indoctrinate you and keep you in a rigid British model empirical way of thinking. Okay, empiricism, that's British way of thinking. Okay, you have to also allow yourself to have ideas and look for the possibilities of a thing, because the occultists that run the show know this. That's why they get everybody to watch these movies, so that collectively everybody can think about these things and manifest them. So if you're familiar with the concept of the mastermind, and I don't, you may be familiar with Napoleon Hill. He wrote a book
Mhm.
called Think and Grow Rich years ago.
Listen,
Right?
oh my God, it was something you said earlier. Oh my God, it was something you said earlier. Matter of fact, it was about the dude you was talking about. I don't know if he was for the CIA or FBI, whoever, who he wasn't a remote viewer, but he was able to tap in and do the research, and you know what I'm saying, like really elaborate on it. When you said that, I didn't want to interrupt you, but on God, on God, the first thing I thought about was that book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, because he literally, to me, was the first person that, well, I guess he was somebody, when you talk about the niche of self-improvement, you know what I'm saying, and personal development and all that, they give him a lot of credit. But that book, I ain't gonna lie, like that book did something for me, because I was able to see how he was able to use our technology, our intelligence, but he was able to process it and put it into a digestible form to where people, a lot of people on different levels of wherever you are in your life, as far as your knowledge, whatever you want to call it, it resonated with. But there
Right.
was a part in that book when he talked about his like Last Supper, where he was able to channel all of his heroes, whether all the different millionaires and all the different people that he looked up to, and he was able to bring all of them together and sit at a round table and imagine them all being there with him, even though they wasn't. But he was able to tap into that conversation with them and like extract, and pull away the intelligence and the gifts and the assets and the attributes that they had, and then implement that into him and his journey and his path. I didn't want to interrupt you, but on everything when you were saying, I was like, yo, it sounded like he did that, the thing from Think and Grow Rich. You know what I'm saying? It was powerful because that's a very, 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 very powerful, I feel like, blueprint on how to utilize or maximize this thing we call the imagination.
I love the way you broke that down, boss. And we'll tell you something. Napoleon Hill was pressured to water down the material. Even that is watered down information. He had also come up with something that was called tapping into the mastermind. I think eventually it was either called Mastermind in 16 lessons or Mastermind in 22 lessons. Anyway, you might could find it, in a PDF model now, because the Fords pressured him and said, listen, man, you can't put this information out in the public because we don't want the common folks to know this. And what is that? The mastermind is when you get two or more people to come together and focus on the thing and manifest it. You see what I mean? So you see where I'm going about why when we watch these movies, what's going on with our ability to manifest things, everything in Star Trek and everything in Matrix and all that, the technology, all that stuff is coming into fruition now. Why? Because the occult, the people who deal with the occult know that you can utilize the people's minds and imagination to bring forth the things in which they want to see, as far as getting the world to go where it wants to go or where they want it to go. This is why they got off the human genome research and got more into studying consciousness, because they started understanding that, wait a minute, hold up. We're looking into this whole idea of being a superior white race, but maybe that's not gonna really get us anywhere. So let's focus on the mind, let's focus on consciousness. And then they discovered that consciousness affects the DNA and the genes. They thought it was the other way around. They said, oh, wait a minute, hold up. So you mean to tell me that the way I think and the way I feel can affect my genes? They discovered this, and this work is also found in the works of Heart Math Institute, that when you're thinking positive, your DNA molecules expand. When you're thinking negative and when you're depressed, your DNA molecules contract. Okay? Similar to the Ifa tradition, when you're in Ire, there's expansion. When you're in Osogbo, there's contraction. So the key insight is simple, right? Even when it comes to mainstream science, you keep in mind, about how we can manifest things collectively. Then you start to understand why they try so hard to keep you full of fear and full of hatred and all this internal strife, and got you arguing with your grandma and, arguing with your wife or your husband and so on. It's for their interest to keep that energy going because they can feed off of that. They can feed off of you not getting along and not being able to focus on what you want to focus on. So they can keep you focused on what they want you to focus on, so you can end up manifesting that instead. So, you know, once you're able to tap into that creativity, they know that we will not accept any elite fool rolling over us and telling us what to do and live our lives. That's why they don't want you using your imagination, because you tapped into your magic. They don't want you tapping into your magic. They want you doing what they want to do so that they can use your magic themselves.
And use it against you.
Indeed. Indeed. That part. That part. So, you know, so yes, I call them the puppet masters behind the scenes. And they'll make sure that information and knowledge is suppressed for those who are considered the common folks, right? Now what they're doing, though, is that they're doing what I call information overload. So they put out a whole bunch of bullshit along with the truth. Kind of like when they threw out the, kind of like in the Batman show when Two-Face had the two sides of the coin and one had a scratch on it. So you could tell because they both sides had heads on it. So you had to scratch one side, and Batman threw all the coins in the air and it fell, and he couldn't find his coin, and therefore he could not make decisions. That's what they're doing to the people. You see? So that's why you're going to have discernment.
Baba, now with that being said, now, and man, I love it, as I always do. And like, shout out to Young P. And I love it. Yeah, we count hundreds on the table, 20s on the, anyway, what you just said there, I feel like, yes, if let's just use the Batman scenario with Two-Face and the coins, and he knock them all over the place. That goes back to when earlier when you was dropping jewels, I'm like, yeah, but we gotta, like, there's two different levels of this thing called meta. You got the Facebook, you know what I'm saying, dude that changed the name of Facebook to Meta, but then you got the Dr. Blair level of Meta. So we have the ability, and for those who have seen that movie or that series, Supercell on Netflix, we have the ability in the entire genealogical phenotype to tap into that higher level of meta. So therefore, if we are able to tap into and cultivate and nourish this thing we call the Ori, the mind's eye, third eye, whatever you want to call it, we can still discern what is the coin with or without the scratch, even amongst those coins of thousands or hundreds of coins, because if we tap in, if we go within, like you said, when Neil was able to figure out how he could beat Mr. Smith, if we do that, we still can win, and no matter what, because we are the one who was sent here from the all, and we are always going to be the all because we are the one. United we stand, divided we fall. I am because we are, because we are, I am. You can't stop that. You can't break that. It's infinite.
That's right. That's right. And keep in mind, the only reason why Two-Face was relying on that coin in the first place is because he was split as an individual. That's why he even felt he needed the coin. You see what I mean? So if you transcend duality and come into the oneness of who you are, there's no need to flip a coin. You already have the right guidance coming from within, you see. Also, if you look into W.E.B. Du Bois, talk about the soul of Black folks, where the Negro has been split in two. That's the same concept. So we done split in two. Now we're Two-Face. You hear talking about how, man, oh, that brother Two-Face. That's because he's not integrated within himself, so he's split and scattered, right? So we got to integrate ourselves. And this is what it says in the Bible in Matthew 6:22, when it says, and this is the Bible, okay? I'm going to talk about the Bible real quick because, you know, for some reason they gloss over this all the time. Jesus is made to say, right, that when the eye is made single, the body is being filled with life. You're going to find that in the King James Bible. Forget about the Gideon Bible you find in the bathroom at the hotel. It's not going to have it in there, okay? They edited, they changed that. So anyway, go ahead and look it up. And Jesus says that when the body, when the mind, or the two eyes are made single, the body will be filled with light. And he goes on to say something interesting. He talks about you cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and Mammon, because you're going to love one and hate the other. It's talking about being split up. So basically, in order for you to ignite that inner eye and awaken that spiritual science within yourself, is that you unify the two aspects of your brain, higher self and lower self, and hence you have actually formed and awakened the cross within you. Hence the crossroads. You're able to connect with Eshu at any time and have the doors opened up, because you're carrying your cross, but you know exactly where you're going, because you have made the decision the decision, because now you are practicing precision and deal with the core erect or correct way of seeing things. Neo is targeted by the agents in the Matrix because he could become a threat by waking the others up who are plugged up into the machine and operating as an energy source, aka batteries for the Matrix, right? The awakened one who can tap into the power of the field and literally change the program in the Matrix. So basically, Neo's powers are not so much just fantasy, but the symbolic mastery and coherence within the field. You see, so the field is also the force. Hence, we have a force field that we can tap into. See, everything bears witness. Brother heard down his motorcycle and skied off. But anyway,
that's powerful, man. Like for real, like that's powerful. Like powerful. My God.
So yeah, you know?
Yeah.
So
I had so many thoughts. I done lost some thoughts because it was just so many. Like, and because like every time you speak, I'm like taking notes in my mind, like it's computing and got all kind of different ways to go about asking another question. But yeah, that was powerful, and it reminds me of like when you said how what did you say about Neo, like how he's able to do, I forgot how you worded it, but it was something you said he's able to do to make the impact on the Matrix the way he does. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something that triggered something in me. I'm trying to pull it back in.
Well, basically, he's able to balance the equation. Check this out. You know the concept of Harun set, right?
It was the two sides. My bad. Yeah, when you said the two sides of like how Neo was able to like manipulate the, you know what I'm saying, both aspects of whatever it was that he was going on. And then you said SU. But that is so real because we all are, I feel like we all have those same abilities to be SU. And so I don't know if it was you or somebody else I did a show with, but I was thinking like, when I think about a Gemini, I feel like, I don't know, I would love to see if SU was a Gemini. I don't know if the Orishas had, you know what I'm saying? But because you think about it, he had two sides. You know what I'm saying? One side is this, one side is that. Well, that's a Gemini. Anybody who's a Gemini, they really know, like, that's a real thing for us. Like, that is a real thing, man. For real.
Yeah, you know, in one of the books of Warren, it talks about how SU walked between the two friends, and one saw the side of his face painted black, the other saw the side of his face painted red. And instead of them acknowledging Eshu, which was the form of Abo, they refused to make sacrifice and overcome their ego. They wanted to argue. They couldn't let it go. No, he's red. No, he's black. And they kept on fighting. They both saw the same thing, right? From a different perspective. And instead of honoring that, they destroyed each other's yam farms, right? Okay. So that's the lesson. You know, and this is why the metaphor of acknowledging Eshu, acknowledging the paradox, acknowledging how two things can be right at the same time. You see. So from a mystical perspective, you get this simulation theory echoes the ancient teachings that on the physical world is a veil and a projection or a training ground. An idea is long explored by these religious traditions and esoteric schools that describe reality as being layered, symbolic, and shaped by consciousness, right? But the consciousness is the cause and the symbolism is the effect. So this fusion of scientific speculation and spiritual insight mirrors the core message of the Matrix, whether you believe in Sophia Steward's work, the Wachowski brothers' reinterpretation of her work, the Val Valerian and Braden, and all seem to agree that the world we perceive as constructed interface and awakening begins when we recognize the deeper architect beneath the appearances. That's why I mentioned earlier, you can't put 2 and 2 together and get 22 unless you're thinking in symbolism. You have to transcend symbols and look for the essence, because when you look at numbers, right, 2 plus 2 equals 4, but you see 2 digits. Now check this out. Kemet numbers started out as being line segments. And basically, there were different reconfigurations of line segments. Romans took that idea of line segments and began to take them and lean them on across each other. Then they had to go into numbers, into letters, right? Because we still use those line segments in divination, marking the ground, marking the sand. In ancient Kemet, they had geomancy, where they had 16. Eventually, it evolved into the 16. And instead of using the keen, they used sticks. Right, but it's the same method. It's the same method. You see what I mean? So we have to understand that a lot of things that appear to be separate, when we look at the universal principle, then we can understand where they all unite, where they all meet up. So this also, we look at the universal model of things. The universe encodes information like a hologram. Every part contains the whole, and locality is an illusion. And if you don't believe me, for those of you who have practiced anything like Reiki, you can send Reiki from where you're at in a living room all the way across the world to somebody and heal them if they give themselves permission to receive it. So it's kind of like an Ori talking to another Ori here and getting permission to receive the healing. That's how it works. So this also somewhat mirrors, in a way, both not only the Hermetic law as above so below, and points also to mentalism, which is the mental nature of our reality. The holographic principle sets at one of the most mind-bending intersections of modern physics and ancient metaphysics in scientific terms. The principle emerged from, like, for instance, black hole physics. So you got researchers like Jacob Bekenstein and Stephen Hawking, who showed that the information content of a black hole scales with its surface area, but not its volume. But then he says that that this proposal that all information in a region of space is encoded on a lower dimensional boundary. In other words, the three-dimensional universe we experience may be a kind of projection, a deeper two-dimensional informational layer, which is projecting what we see a 3D reality. You see what I mean? So, you know, people are arguing about whether or not the earth is round and flat. I mean, listen, everything is being, in that theory, being projected from a two-dimensional screen and creating a 3D reality. And then there's the fourth dimension, fifth dimension. Depends on how you're looking at things.
It's perspective and the Wizard of Oz effect.
Indeed.
And you know, you said something earlier too, not to cut you off, but it was something that you said, and I'm almost sure it was you who I said this to. It was hilarious. I think we both laughed about it. But when you talk about the Matrix and how the Wachowski brothers pretty much, you know, they culture vote, you know, Sophia Steward's work. It reminded me, I believe, when we was actually talking on the phone preparing for this show, and I was like, it's a lot of mother lovers out there who not doing the work. They Milli Vanillian out here, like they lip singing shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you remember that was you I was talking to, right? When I said we got these Milli Vanilli motherfuckers out here, like y'all ain't real artists for real. Y'all ain't doing it for real. Y'all just, you know what I'm saying? Y'all just getting out here. Y'all got a little mic and y'all.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. You never know when that goddamn record goes skip and reveal that you lip singing.
We were talking about this show. I was in the Dollar Tree. I think I was getting some candles, and we was on the phone, and you was telling me about, we was preparing for this show. You was telling me about the books and all that. I'm like, yo, yeah, because there's a lot of Milli Vanilli going on out there, man. They ain't doing the work for real, like, but they coming out here lip singing like they got that lip service like they really doing it. But yeah, y'all ain't. So anywho, but that's a real thing, and I feel like, but that's really what the puppets or the so-called ones who the powers that used to be, that's what they're doing. Like, they're putting that Wizard of Oz effect on the mainstream, on the masses, to make it appear as if they have all this power and all this control. But really, y'all niggas, they ain't really shit. Like, for real.
Yeah. And I mean, shoot, that's they want you to be the lion that the Lion of Judah hasn't awakened yet, right? You're the lion that lacks courage. You know, you're the freaking scarecrow that ain't got a brain, and the Tin Man who ain't got a damn heart. You see what I mean? You know, so there's a disconnect, you know. You know, to my understanding, that the person who came up with that story was on some deep level knowledge too, you know. But essentially, we're dealing with a matrix, and we're dealing with a universe that appears to be binary, right? Because we need this complementary opposites in order for things to work. So you walk, you take 2 steps with your right foot and your left foot. You got 2 eyes and so on. You got a balance. You got a left, right, and the middle. The whole thing is that what's holding the left and the right together? The middle. So this is why, like in Buddhism, it talks about taking the middle ground and so on. But when we're looking to this, the polarity of this universe, in Ifa divination as well as the I Ching, you're dealing with ones and zeros basically. You know, so for those who are familiar with the I Ching system, there's 8 trigrams, and Ifa there's 16 quadrigrams, right? So the logic is dealing with digital code, and even the quantum fields, they're dealing with oscillations. you know, and these oscillations are going between potential states. So when an E5 priest casts a kin or puele, they're not just predicting the future in just a mystical sense. They're assessing the underlying code of the moment. So the same way Neo learns to see the green glyphs behind the matrix, the Odu reveals the pattern beneath the appearance, the hidden architecture shaping events, choices, and possibilities. So when you look at Odu and so on, you're looking at these columns. You're looking at these columns of numbers. You see what I mean? Because basically what you're learning is how to manipulate and work the matrix from that perspective. You see this not just E5, but also Taoism that's also connecting with these 8 hexagrams. You see, so the binary nature, trigrams, which makes up a hexagram, excuse me. So the binary nature becomes even more powerful when placed besides the various teachings of which we talked about, right? So one describes reality as a multi-dimensional training environment where consciousness incarnates into a constrained density learned through limitations. Another describes the field as conscious matrix of information that responds to beliefs, emotion, and intention. In Ifa, these two ideas cover the Odu that are not static, you see? So every moment is governed by a different Odu, okay? That's why I don't recommend someone to go and keep on getting second opinions when they get a reading from a particular priest, because then they're going to go and get different readings, and guess what? Every one of them are going to be correct, which might increase all the elbows that you got to do, because that shouldn't have stepped in and said, now, you know, first you all just needed ID move, but since you kept on doubting and want to play with me, now you got to sacrifice 7 goats and so on. I mean, hey, that's what happens. A lot of times people end up getting played because they want to play. You see what I mean? A lot of people want to cheat, so they run into cheaters. You run into the reflections of that in which you desire the most, also things in which you've encountered in your past, and that's replaying over in your mind because it was impressed upon your subconscious. It's been oppressed upon your life force. So a lot of times, if your parents were bullies, you're going to discover that you run into bullies in real life. This is why the inner work is so important. One way of doing the inner work is to going back to the child that was being bullied. Because a lot of times we're beating up on our inner child because we're like, I'm not going to be like that weak sucker that's getting his ass beaten and kicked around. But what we should be doing is going back in time, finding a beat up child, hugging him and saying, I love you, because that's a part of yourself.
Listen, and that shout out to Baba Efunyemi. I talked to him earlier tonight, but that's a real thing, Baba, because I'm gonna tell you, like that right there, what you just said, I feel like I know for a fact that was a lot of the motivation for David Goggins' story. But hell, that's a lot of my motivation. I was bullied as a child against from some big motherfuckers too, and it's like I learned real quick, like, okay, you might be bigger and you might even win, you might get the best of me, at least in your mind. But you gonna, every time you come at me, you gonna work for it. You gonna work for that thing, boy. You gonna work for it because I'm gonna give it to you. You feel me? So it's like, so now it's like nothing matters to me when it comes to like any type of adversity, especially fighting. Because I don't want to fight. I'm too old to be doing that now. But in my younger days, I fought a lot because as a child, you took me back just now with dealing with childhood trauma, because as a child, I dealt with that and I had to fight. I had no choice but to fight, because if I didn't fight, then I'm getting my face kicked in. I might not be sitting here right now. So at least by me fighting and fighting back, I'm letting you know, like, okay, yeah, let's get it. You know what I'm saying? Like you might win. I don't know, but damn it, you gonna work for that win. I'm telling you, I'm giving you everything. Like everything. Indeed. So now it's like there ain't no opponent I'm concerned with, because I've already faced them big giants and them big, you know what I'm saying, bullies who were always 2-3 times bigger than me. I've done that. And now it's like, okay, so who are you? Okay, let's get it. That's all you got. But all that to say, it takes that. Like, you at some point in life, whether you've been bullied or you've been through adversity, you've been molested, you've been raped, you've been stole upon, you've been robbed, you've been shot, no matter what it is, if you have been wronged in any way, shape, form, or fashion, at some point, you have to come to that judgment day of when you're going to decide, okay, am I going to keep letting life keep punching me and kicking me in the face, or am I going to fight back and hit that part of life with a haymaker? At some point, that has to happen. But if not, what are you even living for? You know what I'm saying? Like, for real, I'm not telling nobody to commit suicide, nothing, but I'm just saying at some point in life, we have to get tired of being taken advantage of people, you know what I'm saying, bullying us and trying to do us any kind of way, and say enough is enough. Fuck this. Let's get it. We got to do
Right.
we got to be the Alabama boat lift. Like, yeah, we got to throw the hat off. Huh, you know what I'm saying? And just let loose, because it's like, nah, man, I'm not having this today. And I love how he did that. When he let that hat loose, you saw the cavalry come in and everything went down.
You know,
So I say all that to say, everything you saying, you're painting a beautiful picture of life, but from the highest form, man. And how I feel like everything that is, was, and always will be, from the past, present, and future, and then we're encompassing understanding, overstanding, understanding, understanding on all levels from all capacities. And I think you had mentioned earlier about the 4 elements of the planet, right? Water, air, fire, you know what I'm saying, wind, like whatever the 4 major elements of the planet, like that's all us, period.
yes.
What are we gonna do with it?
That, you know, I see what someone mentioned, the 7 principles of Tahuti, right?
Yeah.
You know, or 7 laws of Tahuti.
Yeah. Shout out to Adeyemi.
Mentalism. I memorized these, right? You know, I meant to memorize them. I tell people, hey, go ahead and shoot it off. Mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender, right? So mentalism, and all this is connecting. And what the brother is pointing out is basically one of the formulas of how to navigate throughout this matrix. Mentalism, reality is mind, right? The all is mind, the universe is mental. Correspondence as above, so below, you know, which we mentioned earlier. Patterns repeat across scales. Vibrations, nothing is static. Polarity, opposites and degrees are the same thing. And rhythm, cycles govern manifestation. Cause and effect, nothing happens randomly. And gender, creation requires complementary forces. That's what that means. So these principles function like a cosmic code in how it rules. You got the governing manifestation, you got collapse and transformation, you got the 7 principles of Tahuti. You know, they kind of read as the formula to the underlying source code of reality. And when you place them besides dealing with the matrix, they illuminate the how, the perception, and how perception shapes existence and experience itself. Mentalism teaches that the universe is fundamentally mind-based. So see, that's why I talked about earlier about the mastermind, because the mastermind was a way that you get a bunch of people that wanted to do business together on the same page and focus on the same thing, and then make it manifest that much easier. You see what I mean? And that is the power of unity. Umoja, you know, so you're bringing forth that concentration when everybody focuses on one thing, right? And bring it into manifestation. That's a collective. That was the mastermind. And this is what the Ford family was trying to tell Napoleon Hill that he didn't, he shouldn't be telling the public. So he watered it down with Think and Grow Rich. That's what that was. You see, again, I'm going to repeat that whole idea, because when the brother talked about the 7 principles of Tahuti, what that talks about also is being able to use these principles to manifest the things in which we want to live in, you know, in reality. Correspondence, as above, so below, reflects the Matrix films layers, like the Matrix, Zion, Source, each mirroring others in structure. Vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender all describe dynamic forces that govern how energy moves, shifts, and balances, and so on. So much like the rules that govern the simulated world, Neo learns how to perceive. So in this sense, the principles of Tahuti act as metaphysical operating systems, explaining why the matrix behaves the way it does. And while awakening begins with understanding the patterns beneath appearances, right? Okay, like I'm mentioning, going beyond talking about 2 and 2, which when you take 2 symbols and combine them and say, now I got the number 22, as opposed to looking at the actual essence of what makes the number what it is. You got to go to the source. That's why Rumala says the source, Rumala breaks down in Ifa. Rumala means the source is my light, right? They may say heaven knows the way to salvation, but what is the source? Orun. Orun is the source. Ella, Arumala, the source is my light. So if you want to tap into the light, then you got to go into the source. So in the matrix narrative, each principle becomes a tool for navigating the illusion. Mentalism is Neo realizing that the world bends to belief, right? We'll talk about little boy with the spoon in a minute. Correspondence is Morpheus teaching that the rules of the matrix reflects deeper truths about the self. Vibration appears in the way of agents, programs, and humans which operate at different energetic frequencies. So polarity shows up in a tension between choice and control, light and dark, human and machine. Rhythm is the cyclical rise and fall of the one across iterations. So cause and effect is the oracle's domain. Probability, consequence, and a chain of events that shape destiny. Deo puele, chain of events. The oracle's domain, probability. So we got gender. In a Hermetic system, in Hermetic terms, is the interplay of active and receptive forces that generate creation. Not just so much biological sex, but together, it's dealing with contraction and expansion. The dealing with the Ashe of Ire and Ayewo or Osogbo. What is
Masculine,
Ire?
feminine, light and dark, up and down. It's all polarities, right?
Indeed. So polarity is like you have a position. So when you got that dot, right? When I talked about the dot within a circle, it's a position. It's pose. What you pose to do.
Yeah.
It's posing, right?
Yeah.
And then you have an opposite where you got basically two poles. Now you got polarity.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? But it's not a purpose of just having a point without a reference point, without another reference. Therefore, then you can draw a line. And then you can draw what we call the Trinity. You can draw a triangle. The triangle has 3 dots, 3 angles, and 3 lines, right? Making it the first shape that is complete Trinity. 3 times 3 right there.
Yeah.
The triangle.
And just like the Kybalion, that's where you can learn a whole lot about them 7 Hermetic principles. At least that's where I learned mine from. What about you, Baba?
Definitely, yes. In fact, 2 or 3 of my teachers referred that book to me. Baba Femi, he talks about the Kybalion. And also one of my first elders, her name was Dionysia. She gave me a Kybalion and said, study that. She said, you better memorize. I would memorize. She wasn't playing. She was like my oracle.
Man, that's what's up. Yeah.
So, you got these Hermetic principles or Tahuti principles. Why are they called Hermetic? Hermetic means sealed. Okay, Hermes means sealed. So there's Hermetic.
Real quick, Baba, can you let them know that is Tahuti? Like that's just what they call. They call them Hermetic justice, but it's really Tahuti from ancient Kemet.
Right. And what they mean by hermetically sealed, Hermes, it's sealed because one may not be initiated into the deeper truths simply because they're not seeking the deeper truth. So therefore, it's veiled. That's why Aset says, I am yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and no mortal man sees beyond my veil. See? So when it's applied to life, these principles become the practical tools for clarity and empowerment. Mentalism reminds you that your inner state shapes your outer experience. So cultivating focus and intention changes how you move through the world. We're talking about the source code here. Correspondence helps you to recognize patterns, which repeats throughout your relationships. Okay? Habits, environment, all that. So you got to adjust them at the root. Vibration encourages you to manage your emotions and your energetic frequency through breaths, like pranayama, movement in mind state. So you got the breath, you're breathing in, breathing out. The universe does the same thing. It breathes in, it breathes out.
Yeah.
It expands, it contracts. Yeah. The waves, they come in, they go out. That's the rhythm of the universe. It's how things keep on going. So you got to know when to come in. You have to sometimes know when to retreat. Yeah. We talk, you should keep on going till the wheels fall off. Well, the wheels fall off in the middle of the race. You'll never reach the finish line.
But what's so beautiful? What's beautiful about this is like we never coordinate, but it's so funny. I feel like it always happens where it still aligns. But even like we talk about the sun and the moon, you got to have the day, you got to have the night. It's like I'm rocking the sun, you rocking the moon. You know what I'm saying? But it's going to completely always be a cyclical nature, no matter what. It just doesn't fail, and that's where I feel like when we really tap into who and what we are and being the all of the all. You know what I'm saying? Like and not wanting to be the one. I can't remember who I was talking to, but I remember it was a conversation where someone mentioned the term of chosen. And I politely accepted, like, I appreciate that, but I'm not chosen because if I was chosen, I'd be isolated as just a one. And if I'm just a one, then that means I can't be collectively as powerful and unified with the all. So I would rather be a part of the all than to be a chosen one or be the one, because I have a lot more power being connected to the all than I do being just the isolated one, being a so-called chosen one. You feel me? So it's like, that's where I'm like, this conversation is very powerful, to the point where we got so many comments, Baba. I got to get ready to shut it down soon, because I got to get up early, and I could go all night if I didn't have to get up early and continue to do some other work. But I want to share a couple of these real quick before we get out of here. So shout out to, and I start them. Shout out to Emperor of Truth 777. He said, "How can I lock in tighter with you, brothers, in order to learn more and to work with you, consultations, etc., etc.?" Well, Baba, I'll let you go first, but I know we definitely working on doing some collaborations collectively. But Baba does his thing, I do my thing, but we definitely, we're going to do our thing collectively, together. But Baba, if you want to answer the question before I do, it's all yours.
Brother, you can contact me and take my email. It's khepra.ptah@gmail.com. And soon what I'm going to be doing is I want to collaborate with the brother Risha Bemi to eventually have classes and so on, take it to the level where people can, ask more questions and further their own development and share in the development moving forward. Okay.
Sure. Excuse me. My answer, Emperor of Truth 777. If you check the bio of the channel, I got the link to the Patreon. You can join the Patreon. That'll be the easiest thing to do. Because matter of fact, shout out to the Patreon tribe. We're gonna have our next private community call Sunday at 5 p.m. where I am SCG13. I'll post the links tomorrow. I'm thinking about doing one, or trying to do one Saturday too, because there's a few calls I know I'm running behind on that I got to get done for the tribe, which is one is divination call and the other one is a mind movie call. So I'm definitely working on getting those done. Excuse me, but me and Baba Khepra have been working on trying to get something together for a long time, and look, we're gonna make it happen. We both got a lot going on. He got a lot going on, I got a lot going on, but we're gonna make it happen, just like we did this conversation happen tonight, because I want to get it in where we do the Hermetic and the Ishe, you know what I'm saying? Like doing courses and doing trainings and sessions on both, because I feel like both of our paths are similar, where we both, got ties and deep connections to both aspects of, that spiritual culture. So that's something that we definitely could put together. But with that being said, brother Emperor of Truth, you can hit Baba up at his email. You can hit me up on the Patreon. Excuse me, and we're gonna definitely make it do what it do in the very near future. Baba M. Kosi had a question. Baba Khepra, what is the power and significance of 16? I heard you say Heru was actually cut up to 16 pieces or parts, not 13. So I wanted to get out. I thought that was a dope question too.
I've heard, the aspect of Osir being cut up into 14 pieces, but there's another story where in the Plutarch's work, they talk about 16 pieces. One of the things you look at is that there's also 16 folds in the pyramid. And the pyramid is a four-sided quadrilateral triangle, the base 360 degrees, pi radius square. Meditating within the pyramid. I had a brother who deals with the Iyami. He had the Iyami show up, right, in a meditation, and came to him in a dream, where they formed a pyramid around him, dealing with the 16 angles of the 16 birds. Number 16 also deals with Ifa, because they represent the 16 patterns of divination that make up a total of 256 different combinations. So as far as I'm concerned, the number 16 deals with power and revelation. It deals with the combination of Ejiogbe, right? And then all the way to the bottom is Ofun. The back is Ofun. So from 1 through 16, you got the head of the snake in Ejiobe and the tail of the snake in Ofun. That's dealing with Dambala. That's the snake that consumes the universe and holds the universe together in the form of Uroboros. My courtesy to Baba Shango Dare, who explains that in detail. One of my elders.
Ase. Yeah. Shout out to Chief Louis Satish as well, because I remember my very first book that I ever read on Orisha was Jambalaya by Chief Louis Satish. And she, matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, in the original cover, she had like a symbolism of the Dambala on the cover, but she definitely spoke about it as well. So shout out to her, man, because that's where I first got my first experience with learning about Orisha, Ifa, as well as Dambala. But she actually kind of tied in the Hermetic culture into it as well. So shout out to the elder, Chief Lisa T. You know,
Lisa T, she's amazing. Her work is amazing. You know,
yes, sir.
very influential. In fact, I still have her work. So I have Jambalaya and I also have Carnival of the Spirit.
I got that one too. I didn't finish that one though. I don't even know if I finished Jambalaya. I read a majority of Jambalaya, but I don't think I finished the Carnival Experience. But yes, sir, that's what's up.
Yeah. So, you know, and I also had the honor of meeting her at you know, at one of the conferences with Baba Femi, you know, for IDS side. You know, very graceful spirit.
Listen. That was my first. Listen, she was literally my very first introduction to Orisha. Like literally, like she was the very first one. She was the first one I ever read her work. The first one I ever had a call like this. Like I remember these two sisters had a kind of like a mentorship program. I think like 4 or 6 weeks or whatever. But I saw it and I joined it because I never had no access to the to the information, and she was dope. So it's like yeah, shout out to the Chief Teach for sure. I sure.
Definitely. Shame.
Okay. I got one more. Let me see. Wait, two more. Two more if you got time, Baba. I got 2 more real quick. So shout out to the Unique Tribe. She said, Baba, can you explain the difference between left-hand path and right-hand path? Also, Papa Legba and Baron Samadhi related. Are they related? And then lastly, Jade Emperor appeared in my dreams with love and guidance. Thanks, Baba. You got anything for that?
I say. Now, Jade Emperor, I got to go back to my memory files of the Jade Emperor, you know, but I do know that sounds like that deals with the Chinese culture and connecting with the I Ching and the Tao and so on. And so Jade also deals with the energy of the heart and expansion, healing, and so forth. Jade is a very powerful stone when it comes to ancient Chinese tradition and Asian tradition. Another thing too is that as far as the Baron Samedi, he used to come to me. In fact, he's one of the Loas, along with Legba, that was revealed to me as the spirits that surround me. My father used to deal with the Baron. And I say that they're similar, but they're different entities, you know. So Legba, who is quite similar to Eshu, you know, you might could say that Baron and Legba to a degree are both kind of like trickster in a way. You know, I don't like to call them trickster because people get the message wrong and think that, you know, they identify them with the devil and all that stuff. But they are known to teach very harsh lessons. But the difference is Legba opens up the way and closes the way for ceremony, you know, just like Baba Eshu in the Yoruba tradition. And then you got Baron Samedi or Baron Saturday because he's the Saturnian-ish Loa. He deals with the planet Saturn. So he's kind of like Kronos to a degree. So Baron Samedi deals with, you know, helping to usher the souls from this realm into the next realm. So he is a cycle pump. So Baron Samedi is always with Mama Brigitte. So when you have like a cemetery, right? The two that are buried, the first male is Baron Samedi's shrine, and the first female is Mama Brigitte, right? So they encapsulate that. Another thing too, and let's see, put the question back up on screen. What else did she have?
Which one was it? Oh, hold on. Let me go. I get it. I got you, Baba. Hold on. There you go. Boom.
Okay, so the difference between left-hand path and right-hand path. So basically, a lot of people will say that the left-hand path is service to self, the right-hand path is service to others, right? You know, so it depends. You know, I think the left-hand path, you know, a lot of people say, oh, that's dealing with sorcery. That's dealing with the darkness. And a lot of people say, well, the right-hand path is dealing with the light. It's dealing with the Jedi. You know, so, you know, the left-hand path is dealing with the Sith. The right-hand path is dealing with the Jedi. You see what I mean? Now, some may say that you might become like a gray Jedi and balance them out, right? But here's the thing behind that. You have to make a decision at some point in time of what you're going to do and where you're going to go and how you're going to do it. And even Jedi have been known, like Mace Windu, to tap into the dark side from time to time, if I'm making sense. What made Mace Windu dangerous was not so much that he had a purple blade and he was a brother, but he also had the ability to tap into the dark side, according to the lore around the Jedi. So a lot of times, you know, you may have access to that you know, being able to tap into the dark side when you have to, or deal with the shadow part of your being. Remember what I mentioned earlier. A lot of our heroes who we think are flawless, you find out that they have questionable paths. You also hear about a lot of times our prophets always had a traitor. Many of our prophets and spiritual masters had a traitor who was close to them and watched them and tried to seize the opportunity to outshine them, right? So this is part of your initiation as you go through life. You're going to go through times when you're going to experience a traitor. It may be someone close to you, it may be a loved one, and so on. And the whole thing is that this is part of what's shaping your character and giving you the opportunity that you are who you say you are.
That look, we could just drop them. We could drop the mic and just end the show and just walk off and not even do one for like 6 months. that last phrase right there alone. When I tell you, like, Baba, like, you hit that thing, man, that's a grand slam, bottom of the ninth, 2 strikes, 3 balls, like that was that. Because I just had that conversation last night, literally last night with a 14-year-old freshman in high school about that same exact thing. The people who sometimes should be there to support you, to nourish you, to uplift you, to, you know, empower you, they might be jealous of you. They might hate you. They might want to destiny swap with you. So they're not going to position you to do what they should do, because they, in all realities, want to be you rather than to be the coach, to cultivate, to nourish, to teach, to do whatever. They probably want to be you. So they're going to do things to sabotage or put potholes or put roadblocks in your way so they can cherish their little limelight of having the opportunity to be the one that so-called calls the shots. You know what I'm saying? And it's sad because, you know what, and I'm just going to keep it all the way, but because shout out to Wunam, because excuse me, I see her, and shout out to Baba Drink. I see both of them in here staying tonight. Shout out to her for giving me my last message from the ancestors. They told me don't dim your light to make nobody feel comfortable around you. Because if a motherfucker can't take whatever you came to bring, then they need to put some shades on and get the fuck from around you. So I'm gonna say this: there's a lot of people who I used to, and I still do in certain ways, but had to have the utmost love and respect for, that I see are the same way. And it's like things change. And it's like I admired your work. I learned a lot from your work. I studied you, you know, all these things. And it's like now things changed. Like, why did things change? I didn't change. I never switched up. And I'm not going to switch up. I'm not going to change. I am who I am. But it's sad to say that the people who I feel like should be the ones who should be preparing the future generation, who should be cultivating and teaching and nourishing and pouring into those who are going to take the baton to take this thing to the next level, next realm, they're sitting there with the salty fuckboy face syndrome. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I don't know, like, okay, your time is up. You did what you did. But there's a lot more at stake here. And it goes back to what you said earlier about the ancestors are always present. I'm going to do my best to give my best and give my all to any and everybody who's willing to listen to whatever message or whatever insight, whatever cultivation I can give you, because I want to see you win. Shout out to Customato. He said, my job is not to train or teach a fella to be champion of the world. My job is to train and teach a fella to be the champion of the world, independent of me.
Ashe. Exactly.
That's my goal. That's my vision. Anybody who's a part of Ashe, I don't give a damn if you're a guest, if you're somebody who's a co-host, or you've been on the show, if you listen, if you watch, if you share, you're all part of Ashe. You are Ashe, because Ashe is not me. Ashe is my ancestors leading me, and I give gratitude and grace and thanks for them guiding me to do this thing called Ashe. Shout out to Wunam, because goddamn it, she just gave me a whole hell of a lot of insight from them same ancestors. I don't got no problem with making sure that everybody knows what it is with me, because I don't need the limelight. I want to win. I came here to win. I don't need to be the MVP. I don't need the post-game interview. I don't need none of that. I came here to win. And I'm going to do that by all means necessary. So if you ain't on that same frequency, can't fuck with me. Period. Exactly. And I don't fuck with you. Sorry, Baba, but Spirit kind of took over.
That's real.
But, you know, because me and you had that same conversation that night when we were talking about Milli Vanilli. So
Indeed. 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 Exactly.
listen, so I'm gonna leave it alone so we can close it out. Bye. Like whatever you got for the tribe, man, it's all yours. But spirit kind of took over, man. It does that sometimes.
Oh, good brother. You know, my brother. You know, it's always a pleasure. And as far as those who are interested in checking out, I also have a channel, Ancient Wisdom Keeper. That's Ancient Wisdom Keeper, spelled with a Z, Wizdon, and Khepra Ptah 360. You'll be able to find my YouTube channel and so on. Another thing too, you know, try sitting still. Understand that our thoughts, some of our thoughts are from us, and some of our thoughts is coming from, you know, frequencies and everything around us, radio waves and people. You know, the human ear can pick up 40 clicks below human hearing. So just understand what's coming from you and what's coming from that which appears to be outside of you. Ashe. Another thing too, soon, you know, for the end of this month, I'm not going to be doing any consultations because I have some things that I have to take care of. I'll be opening up next month for those who would like consultations. And then we can talk about things, you know, like your destiny. I am open for conversation about how things, as far as lessons can go and so on. So if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. Once again, there's my YouTube channel. It's Khepra Ptah 360 or Ancient Wisdom Keeper. And you can also check me out. I have a Facebook page. I got, you know, an email address, khepra.ptah. That's khepra.ptah@gmail.com.
Ashe. Shout out to Wunam again, man, for rocking with us tonight. Shout out to Nkosi, you know, shout out to Lady Night Walker. Shout out to the whole tribe, man. Definitely give love, gratitude, and thanks, man, for real. And we got a lot coming, tribe. So go ahead, Bubba.
I was just wanted to say gratitude to everyone who had a question and, you know, was on the podcast tonight. You guys were great, you know, so come with the questions because it also keeps me on my toes as well. You know, we're all learning here, you know, no big I and little U's, you know, so that's how we want to go ahead and move it forward collectively.
Yes, sir. Nah, I love it, man. I share Baba like for real. I appreciate you, man, because from day one, like I said, when Wuna introduced us, I already knew it was going to be something special, man. And literally from the very first one till now, you know, and that's what it is, you know, when like energies and frequencies align, it's you know, it's powerful, it's explosive, you know, especially when you're talking about children of Shango. So, you know, we both have our you know, affiliations with Kabi Ase, you know, Oba. So shout out to him, you know, tonight, even though, you know, today was Ogun's day, but you know, we're all collective, just like they're collective, and united we stand, divided we fall. And I give gratitude and thanks to you, the whole tribe, and you know, to everybody and to the all, you know, to all of y'all, man. It's been another magical, powerful, phenomenal show, which I knew it would be. And yeah, I'm grateful, I'm thankful. And tribe will definitely be in the Patreon Sunday, excuse me, at 5 p.m. And then I think I'm gonna try to lock one in for Saturday as well, but I can't confirm that one yet. But Sunday will definitely be there at 5. I'll be posting the link to the Patreon tomorrow, and then yeah, man. So if you got anything you want to close out with, you know, above and beyond what you already dropped, Baba, it's all yours. So we can get this thing wrapped up, and hopefully we can do it again in the very near future for sure.
All right. And by the way, let me send one more shout out to my sister Nikki for making this, you know, all this happen. Peace and blessings, big sis. I love you.
Yes, sir. Already.
We give things in praise. Shirak Amira, Mititera Amira, Anuk Amira. Give thanks and praise to all the Orishas. Give thanks and praise to all the Netaru. Give thanks and praise to all those ancestors whose shoulders we stand upon. I give thanks and praise to my ancestors of long ago. I give thanks and praise to the Oris of my teachers who are on the planet and those on the other side. I give thanks and praise to my ancestral teachers going all the way back to Ile Ife, and my elders teachers going all the way back to Ogun Compound and Abiokuta. I give thanks and praise to the Ori of Obafemi Fayemi, and also in remembrance of his teacher, Dr. Alpha Labia Pega. I give thanks and praise to all teachers, guides. I give thanks and praise to the Oris of all those who have attended this podcast. May all go well with each and every one of us. I say Ashe.
Ashe, oh man, I appreciate you, Baba. Shout out to you for coming through and doing what you always do. I love you, my brother, and listen, I love you, Tribe. I love each and every single one of y'all, man, and I appreciate all the love, support. I can't explain to y'all enough like how much it means to me and how much it inspires me to continue to do what we do. So yeah, we had a little pause, we had a little break, and sometimes you gotta, plug the batteries in and let it charge up. But we back, we here now. We're gonna continue to do what we do. So I'll see the rest of y'all in the very near future. The Patreon Tribe, we'll see y'all on Sunday. And Tribe, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for the love, support. We out, family. Peace. Odabo.
Odabo.
Ẹni tó gbàgbé ilé ṣàpò ìyàpọ̀ tẹ́ǹtì ẹni takísà ní tàtàn bó bá padà sílé anítìjàkọ ẹja lọ pé eégún mo ṣe ní gbẹ́rẹ́ ìpàkọ́ forsake not your ancestors and praise your